Tonight, Superman gives Batman a safe word, and somehow these books are still rated T for teen. Harley Quinn shows us what Jeff Johns gets up to in his downtime, and it is exactly as you would picture it. And Telos gets his ass handed to him, and frankly, I've never been happier. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 232 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host and I'm sorry, but we're just going to have to rush through this intro. I have 15 comics to talk about, one of which is a double length, and I'm pretty sure I don't spend less than 10 minutes on any single one of them. So we're looking at a crazy long episode already, and I don't want to particularly stretch it out any further. So I will tell you everything you can expect from this episode, just a quick little rundown, and then we'll just jump right into it. So this episode we have, in roughly alphabetical order, Batman/Superman, Black Canary, Catwoman, Constantine the Hellblazer, Earth 2 Society, The Flash, Gotham Academy, Green Lantern Corps, Edge of Oblivion, Harley's Little Black Book, New Suicide Squad, Red Hood and Arsenal, Starfire, Telos, and our weekly series, Batman Robin Eternal. Batman's a big one. Definitely listen to that one. Telos is hilarious. Not intentionally, but stupid. And everything else is definitely a part of this week. So, yeah. That's the intro. Into the books. Batman number 49, written by Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV, art by Yanick Paquette. So last issue we had Bruce breaking into Wayne Manor, saying, "Show me my cave," and this issue's literally all about the follow-up on that. So we get a bunch of, not panels, but circles, glimpses into other worlds or something, and we see Alfred is talking to Bruce through each one of them, saying, "It's over, Bruce, you'll never be Batman again." And we don't know that at the time, but we cut to one of these realities where we see Bruce is mayor of Gotham. He's meeting with the Council of Owls, who are advising him on using the Talon Guard or something like that. And he's like, no, that's not necessary. And then everything starts to rumble around him. He's like, it's happening. We got to take care of this. There's no time. So he heads out into his courtyard. He stands, and by the way, the manor's on top of Wayne Tower. So it's just in the middle of the city. And as he walks onto this giant clock in the middle, he says 10:47, the time of his parents' death. And it lowers him down into this massive Batcave. So we cut back 30 minutes earlier and we see Bruce has already figured out, I know something's behind the grandfather clock. When you first was asking you, what's up? What's going on with me? You secretively looked over there. And I thought, you know what? I don't need to know what's there. That's the old me. No worries. But now I got to know what's in there. And Alfred's like, no, please, you really don't got to do this. And he's very forceful. Alfred is going to choke out Bruce if he has to. He's like, no, the city gave you back. The old you, Batman, he's dead. It's a poetic ending. It worked. I'm not going to have you go back out there and do it again. And eventually, as he starts breaking down, he's like, look, you want to go down there for the machine. Truth is, I smashed it. It's gone. It's over. You can't do it. You can't come back. And Bruce is like, I don't know, what machine are we talking about here? He's like, it doesn't matter. Just let Jim Gordon be the hero out there. And he's like, dude, Jim Gordon just got ripped to shreds by Mr. Bloom. He ain't doing hot. I gotta go out there. I can do something about it. And he's like, no, someone else. We've got a whole Bat family. They can do it. And Bruce just says, Alfred, I'm Batman. So he says time to take him down to the cave. We cut back to that alternate world where we see down in the cave, it's fully staffed by tons of people, like a full Wayne Enterprises sort of thing going on. But we see that the head guy in charge is Joe Chill. I don't know the implications of this, but he's like, oh yeah, hey, we've got it on the sensors. It's right on top of us. We have no idea how we're going to do this. And he's like, we'll do it because we have to. And he's like, all right, Mr. Wayne. So Wayne starts getting out of his business suit to change into his other suit. We see that there is a waterfall memorial for all the people who died in Gotham. I don't know if that was an event or multiple things, but regardless, he goes to get ready. back over to the real world, we see them entering the cave, and he's like, look, I'm telling you, this isn't going to work. It's not okay. And Bruce is like, Gotham's falling apart. If all we have is a hope and a prayer, then like I need to go down there and see if there's a way. So he goes over to the machine. He's just like, all right, well, this thing could make me Bruce again. It could make me him. Tell me how it worked. And he's like, it didn't work. We never got it working. Like the thing that you did, old Bruce, you made this machine to re-implant your memories onto clones over and over again, different human minds. It never worked because the human mind is too complicated. Every time he tried to instill the trauma that is necessary to become Batman, it drove them insane and killed them. So like, it's not going to work. And Bruce is like, all right, look, you keep saying that, like you keep saying that it's not going to work. He's like, no, but also I destroyed the server with the memories on it. But he's like, all right, but we're talking about Batman. He would have had contingencies. So he accidentally says the word activate, which causes the whole computer to start booting up. And he's like, computer, can we activate this? And it's like, no, memory's offline. He's like, are there any other compatible systems that would seemingly work with the memories? And he's like, yeah, totally. The Alfred protocol. And Alfred's like, I'm sorry, the what? And turns out that through looking through some of the data, this was the last memory update made, literally right before he went out to go fight the Joker. It is a backup server, and he called it the Alfred protocol because Alfred's always there to patch him up when he's down. So Bruce walks over as Alfred's once again trying to protest and saying like, what about your new life? What about Julie Madison? What about all that? And she's like, my new life doesn't mean anything if Bloom's out there is going to destroy it all. Either I have to try something here to save them, or I'm not going to be able to live with myself anymore. So at that point, Alfred's like, all right, fine. Gives him a hug, and they boot up the machine. So at that point, we cut back to the alternate world. We see Julie Madison approaches Batman, who's in like a white and gold suit. And they've got a kid, and she's like, oh, you don't have to go out there. You don't have to do this. But he kisses her goodbye, kisses the kid, and then hops onto like a gyroscopic wheel that rides up the border of this Gotham. Like there's a dome around it. And as he gets up to the top of the dome, all of a sudden it explodes out with this giant monster thing. He attacks it with a minigun. It doesn't seem to work, and he just dies in fire. And in the background, we see that this is the attempts for his mind to take the Batman graft. It's him trying to latch onto it. And every single time it presents differently. We see some stuff with like chemicals and a fire. We see things where all of his rogues are helping him out. We see one where Gordon is Batman and he's Detective Wayne. Like it keeps happening, and they keep running it over and over and over again until eventually Alfred's like, dude, you, like every single time we're running this, you get close to brain death, and then we have to stop, and it's happening faster and faster each time. This is going to kill you. It is not going to work. And he's like, no, we got to do it again. And eventually Alfred says something like, look, we can't push you past death. Like there's nothing beyond that. And that's where he clicks. He's like, we have to let brain death happen. We have to push me to the point where my brain is essentially wiped clean, and that will be a clean slate that all of the memories can latch onto without anything else getting in the way. The trauma can go in, it'll all be fine. And Alfred's like, you're asking me to kill you. No, I'm not actually literally going to kill you. And Bruce is yelling out because they're still running through the process in the meantime. He's like, please, you got to do it. He says no. And then a voice from the side says, I'll do it. It's Julie. She's been listening the whole time. And she's like, yeah, I've always known. Like Batman disappears at the same time he shows up. Like, yeah, of course it has to be. He asks how bad it is out there. And she's like, it's bad. It's definitely bad. Are you sure that you want to do this? And he's like, I have to do this. She's like, okay, yeah, I get it. So of course there's the reminder here that Madison is related to Joe Chill. So it's like, yo, you know, it's kind of ironic that I am the one who's going to be doing this, like father, like daughter, I guess. Bruce says, I love you, Jules, always will. She presses the button. We get the warnings, the alerts, brain death. And then as it says brain death complete, it has happened. She presses the extra button and says, all right, come back to Gotham. And there's a big blinding light, bunch of bats fly around. And as the machine whirs down, Alfred's like, Master Bruce, if you're in there, you've been away for quite some time. Here's the rundown. And Bruce just says, save it. Get me my suit. So I like it. Okay, so many, I've said this back when it came up, I think at Detective 27. So many people have so much against the machine, the big machine that brings back Batman forever and ever. And yes, it is a little bit hokey in a way, but I can't help but just like the poetic nature of it. The idea of like, Batman is always going to be prepared, and therefore he's prepared for like death itself. And as much as it is hokey, I can't help but enjoy like the insaneness of it. And for a moment like this to pay off to show like Bruce is back, he's got his mold mind back, everything is back to the way it was, and he's going to go out there and kick Mr. Bloom's ass. It's a good moment. I can't help but like it. So yeah, overall, I think I'd probably say this issue, I'm almost at an 8.5. I'm going to stick with an 8. And that's only because I feel like the different universe stuff, the showing of like how his memories are trying to implant in his brain, but it's happening wrong, it's just missing something. I don't even know what, but it feels so detached from the rest of the plot. It kind of felt like the Gothtopia stuff from like, God, that must have been 2 years ago now. Where it didn't feel fully fleshed out enough by the time that we got what the reveal was. So same sort of thing here, smaller scale, but I'm going to say 8 regardless. I think it's a great issue, just not amazing, fantastic. The Flash, number 48, written by Robert Venditti and Van Jensen, art by Jesús Merino. So following up after the last arc, we got a brand new thing going on. Big things are the police department is in rubble. It is no longer standing. And also Captain Fry has a major stick up his ass to catch the Flash because he's a danger and a menace and whatever else J. Jonah Jameson would say. So we see that there's a temporary building set up and Fry's walking through saying like, look, we're trying to set you up a lab. Price tag's no object. Just let us know what you need. We'll put a rush on it. But Barry, you should know that we're doing something different to help us catch the Flash, okay? I want you to understand who we're working with. And he opens up the door to reveal that Central City Police Force is partnering up with the Rogues. All of the Rogues. They're just hanging out back there. And Barry's like, I'm sorry, what? And they're all just like, all right, so when do we start? What's going on? And Captain Fry immediately sets like, look, whoever you think you are, I'm in charge here. I am Captain Fry. Captain Cold does not hold equal rank with me. He just picked his stupid, silly-ass name. And they're just like, yeah, all right, fine, fair enough, whatever. And Barry's like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? What the hell's going on here? And he's just like, look, Captain Cold was cleared by the Justice League. He was pardoned. He's a cool dude now, pun intended. And he wouldn't work with us to catch the Flash unless we also included his little gang. So they're all in here. That's what we're doing. And Flash is like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Are you like, the Flash is a hero, and you are literally partnering with these thieves and criminals in order to do that? And it's like, well, yeah, Flash is not playing by the rules. He's got dangerous powers, and unless we know he's safe to work with, yeah, we're going to treat him as a criminal. That's what we're going on. And we're also going to need your help to catch the Flash as well. So do that. So at that point, saying like, okay, well, what are we just going to wait around for the Flash? And they say nope. And we see that they've, on top of partnering with the Rogues, also built a fleet of drones that will be analyzing Central City all the time for any sort of speed energy. And so they're just hanging around, and the moment that one of them activates, the Rogues are going to be on call to go in, show up, and take care of the Flash. So Barry's like, okay, well, this is getting wildly out of hand. I'm going to take care of some stuff, and I will be back soon. So we see he goes out to a diner to meet with his dad, who, again, after the end of last issue, is cleared. He's an innocent man. He's now out now. And so they sit down to have lunch, and he's like, Barry, you're late. Like, is that a normal thing for you? Seems pretty normal. He talks about how smartwatches and time has moved on beyond him. And Barry's like, yeah, no, there's a whole drones thing going on, and Captain Fry's after me. He's like, Daryl, why does Daryl want to catch you? He's like, not me, but like the Flash, and he doesn't know about my secret identity, and he thinks I'm unsafe. And he's like, well, is the Flash unsafe? He's like, no? Question mark? I don't fully understand all of my powers, but like, I'm doing my best here. And he's like, no, I get, like, I was spent all that time in jail. I saw all these people who were captured by the Flash, and they were some bad people. You are absolutely doing a good. Don't think that this is anything else like that. Like, if you were the Flash back when Nora was killed, by God, you would have stopped the guy. I fully believe that. But of course you couldn't because you were a boy. Don't worry. Hope that doesn't guilt you or anything like that. So they clink clups, and we see down in the industrial district, we have a random guy who starts talking about the scientific method. He's like, first we have our hypothesis, then we must introduce a variable, and he laser cuts open this dangerous gas tank thing, and apparently it's chlorine tetrafluoride or trifluoride. So everyone evacuates the place, and Barry gets a little ping on his phone saying, there's a gas leak down in the industrial side. I got to go do that. So the dad's like, but if you run, the drones will pick you up. It's just like, yeah, well, they still got to catch me. So he runs down, runs into the gas leak area. The drones do pick him up, and they're like, all right, team, let's move. Going to catch the Flash. As he runs in, he realizes that it's chlorine trifluoride, and he's like, oh, crap, this stuff is like ridiculously flammable. Even the sparks from me running would be enough to ignite it. I got to get out of here now. So he grabs the people who are inside still, gets them out of the building, and the whole building just explodes. And he's like, all right, yeah, I guess that happened. And everyone's like, oh, Flash is a hero. He saved us. That's great. And he apologizes to, I guess, the foreman for destroying the building, but the foreman's like, you don't understand. This building is full of chemicals and isotopes. If they all detonate, and immediately Fry is there with the rogues. It's like, I knew it! Flash screwed it up! And he's got his gun trained at Flash, and Flash is like, what is your problem, man? The whole place is on fire. You're not going to arrest me until I take care of that. And Fry's like, all right, fair enough. Let's see if the rogues can do anything about that. And they're like, that's not our job. We're here to catch the Flash, but fine, whatever. So Cold freezes the Flash. Weather Wizard puts down a tornado to contain it, and then Cold uses his ice power to lower down the heat. And he's like, all right, there, taken care of. Let's arrest the Flash. We get a one-page cutaway to Wally, who, after the events of the last arc, has Speed Force energy imbued in him, and all of a sudden his hand starts vibrating. He's like, what the hell is this? And Iris says, time to get ready for school. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll be down in a minute. So back over to Flash and Fry, and Flash is like, hey, man, we were partners once. Now you're working with the rogues. You changed. You changed. And he's like, oh, shut up. This is always, you're a rogue. You were always been a rogue. Laws be damned. This is how you think. So he calls him out by saying, like, supervillains only started showing up once you were around. Coincidence? And he's like, probably not, but also I stopped them, so you're welcome. And then Flash just busts out of the ice and starts whooping the ass of all the rogues. Like, it's not even a contest. He just takes them all out. Finally, Fry's got a gun trained on him, and he's like, dude, it's a normal gun. I can easily just stop the bullet. And he's like, yeah, but it's the principle of the thing. So Flash runs off. Trickster's like, wow, guys, we got our asses handed to him. It's like, Trickster, you didn't even do anything. You were just standing off to the side. Fight next time, idiot. And then Cold turns his attention over to Fry, and he's like, look, all right, we are not here to act as the police. We're here acting essentially as bounty hunters, officially sanctioned, and we're here to get the Flash. So we're not doing that unless you pay us. And then he's like, all right, fair enough. But then Fry bends down and notices a small piece of glass that was involved in one of Mirror Master's things that has a tiny bit of Flash's blood on it. And he's like, we're going to need to get the DNA on this sequence ASAP. Get me Barry Allen. And then we cut over to the weird dude with the scientific method stuff. And he's speaking out loud saying like, well, that went as expected. And we proved our hypothesis. It is now a fact. And tomorrow we will start a new experiment. And he walks over to this big test tube like thing in the wall that says, oh, please just kill me. And he's like, kill you? Oh, that's unthinkable. We're just getting warmed up. Heat wave? I was actually just thinking about Heat Wave. Like, right before I started reading this issue, I'm like, oh, the rogues are around. But that's right, Heatwave's not in here. What happened to him? Turns out he was killed back in Forever Evil. Or seemingly he was. Now he's here having his energy used against him. Inherently, for the issue itself, it's not a bad issue. It's fine. It's establishing some new stuff, messing with the status quo. I'm down with all that. I'm just kind of tired in the general sense of the, oh, you're a vigilante, or oh, you don't play by the rules, or are your powers even safe? And I'm like, look, that's probably realistic. That's probably something that like is fair. But like, we are now like what, 7 years into this universe, like in canon, 7 or 8 years, probably even further, I think the people would just be used to it. Like, sure, you'd have like the rogue person calling out and saying like, oh, he gave me cancer or something. But like, for the most part, I don't need this arc. This arc is silly at best and whatever at worst. To have Captain Fry doing it with nothing more than, oh, he went against his orders once, it feels petty. And I've said that before. It feels very childish and non-justified. So I'm going to say this one is I'll give it a 7.5. I think there's potential in this arc. I think that we could turn it into something cool. I don't know how it's going to end outside of, but don't you see, Captain Fry? We're on the same team all the time. Blah, blah, blah. Like, that's how I see it happening. If it does anything else, I think it has potential. So, yeah, 7.5. Batman and Superman number 29, written by Tom Taylor, art by Robson Rocha. So we got a few things last issue. A big alien died on the moon, called for Batman and Superman to solve its murder, and Lobo is somehow involved. So we open up this issue pretty much in the same spot. Oh, also the ending was Superman discovered that this alien knows something about Kryptonians. So all of a sudden they get a warning. Something big, something fast, something huge coming in. So it lands on the moon next to them, and out stumbles a big lizard-looking alien thing that looks identical to the other alien one, and turns out it's the father. And Superman's like, how do you know it? And Batman's like, I know. It's just, trust me. So it picks up the dead alien body, brings it back into the ship, and Superman and Batman fly in afterwards. At that point, Superman says, like, hey, look, if we're going in here, like, I might be the only one who can really handle this sort of stuff because we're going out into space. And Batman's like, nope, that symbol had my symbol on it too. She knows she'd been murdered. She called for both of us. And Superman's like, okay, well, what about that drone that we found? Someone else is watching. And he's like, whatever, we'll deal with it. Superman makes a joke of like, look, I know you don't like asking for help, so maybe we can come up with a code word. If you need help, say something weird like banana muffin and I'll come running. And Batman's like, shut up, man. So the ship flies off, starts going into space. Batman has a Green Lantern technology that he analyzed from Green Lantern's ring to do a universal translator, and he sticks it onto Clark's like breathing mask, and he's like, go up there, talk to him, you're better at talking to aliens and giant lizards and stuff. So Superman flies in front of him, and he goes, excuse me, hello, can we talk? And he basically says, like, look, we're here because of your daughter. She left a message for us. Somehow she knew of us. Do you know why? And he's like, you guys fought Darkseid like all those years ago and you survived. That stuff gets around. People pay attention to that. And he basically says, this is my daughter. Her name was Mylara. She was exploring this part of space. She left a message to say that she had discovered someone there. And the person says that, like, it's impossible. That area out there is called scorched space. It's a super sun, and it is impossibly hot, and nothing can withstand it. And then Superman's like, but is it a yellow sun? And he's like, yes, it is a yellow sun. Why do you ask? He's like, oh, no reason. I just thinking maybe Kryptonians might be able to withstand it. So Superman immediately is just like, all right, I'm going to go check that out. I'm going to go check out scorched space. You stay here with giant lizard alien man. So he goes off. We see Lobo arrives on the moon. Is immediately like, man, we missed him. All right, fair enough. Turns out that Lobo is the one who killed this alien, or at least it seems like it. She says, got to give her credit. She held out longer than I thought she would. So at that point, Lobo stitches together like, all right, Batman took off and is now with now with the alien up in a spaceship. So at this point, Batman's just asking questions, like the ship apparently runs on starlight. Everything in their culture runs on starlight. Talks about the daughter, saying that at a young age, she just disappeared to go off exploring. She loved finding new places. She might have been the greatest explorer in the universe. And Batman is like trying to be simpatico, trying to be like, yes, I understand. She was murdered. We have evidence of that. And the father alien's like, look, if what she discovered led to her death, are you not worried about your friend? And he's like, nah, he's Superman. And we see that full page spread, he gets to this super sun, which has a ship orbiting it that is doing something to like take in the energy or whatever, and they're like, oh, there's something out there, it'll burn up soon. Oh, it's not. Oh, it's coming towards us. Oh God, it's a person. So they start firing off guns. Of course it does nothing, and Superman just crashes into this thing at like light speed, and we find out that there is a Kryptonian, seemingly Kryptonian, being held hostage / captive inside this ship, and is being used essentially as a solar converter. So this guy's got like a big white beard. He's definitely frail. And Superman's like, Batman, I don't know if you can hear me, but like, I found this guy. I'm bringing him back. We'll be back soon. So all of a sudden, an alarm goes off on the daddy alien ship, and they say, oh, something's outside, and it's overriding our defenses. And Batman's like, no, it isn't. And he's like, what? And he's like, you expect me to believe that a ship like this doesn't have any sort of sensors until something is already locked onto the side? You were expecting it. How exactly did you know where to find your daughter again? And the alien's like, look, shut up. Something's breaking in. Shouldn't we like deal with that? And he's like, look, you feared that your daughter, or curiosity, led her into trouble, and Mylara suspected something about the sunlight, the super scorcher, as you said before. Is that all right? And in steps Lobo. He's like, whatever. You found me out, so be it. Who cares? You won't have your head for much longer. And as soon as Batman sees Lobo, he's like, banana muffin. So at that point, he recognizes Lobo as a Zarnian, and he's like, oh, that means you can heal from any damage, right? And he's like, yeah, why? You plan on damaging me? And he's like, it's not very often. I don't have to hold back. And before Lobo can even react, he's got an outstretched finger. Batman just cuts off the finger. And Lobo's like, how the hell did you... All right, fine. Playtime's over. So fight between them is about to start, and then the big alien just slaps Batman into a wall, and he's like, I'm just gonna kill him. And Lobo's like, wait, but he's my bounty. He's like, you'll get your money, I don't care. However, Batman pulls out a detonator, and he's like, guess what? Ever since I started suspecting you, I've been laying down tons and tons and tons of bombs on this ship. I'm gonna blow us all up. And he does. He clicks the button and everything just starts exploding. But in all the explosions, Batman manages to escape. He steals Lobo's ship and starts just leaving. He's just totally out of there. Lobo's got half a face missing. He's like, all right, well, I'll get on him as soon as this regrows. So Batman hops on the comms to Superman. He's like, hey, look, all of this, everything that we were told in the story, it's all been a ruse. It's all been a lie. I don't know specifically what it is yet, but it's been about you from the beginning, so be aware of that. Meanwhile, Superman is taking on some ship damage, like people are shooting after him. He's trying to keep this old man safe. He's just like, it's all right, Batman, I'm getting there, I'm getting there. And as Superman is distracted by the other ships, the old man pulls out a shard of kryptonite and jams it into Superman's chest. So, whoopsie. I like it. It's I like the mystery. I like the bigger thing growing. I do feel like maybe this is my own fault. I don't have a good grasp on the pieces. I feel like more has been revealed in the book that I'm actually picking up on. And maybe that's just poor reading comprehension on my side, but like the fact that this big alien is somehow complicit, I don't fully understand that yet. I don't think I'm supposed to understand the other Kryptonian. I think that's still supposed to be a mystery. But there was also an alien last issue that specifically wanted, I believe, Batman as the bounty. And that wasn't the big alien either. That was someone else. So I don't know. It's a bunch of moving pieces. Maybe I'm just not paying close enough attention. But I like the issue. It's fun. Banana muffin. That's hilarious. So, yeah, I guess I'll say this one is easily like 7. It feels like a 7 range to me. I would probably like it more if I felt like I had a really good grip on it, but I don't feel like I do. I feel like I'm missing something that has already been stated, and I'm hoping that it can just clear itself up over the next subsequent issues. So 7, here's hoping. Green Lantern Corps Edge of Oblivion #2, written by Tom Taylor, art by Ethan Van Sciver. So last issue we had, the beginning of it is all about how the Green Lanterns have still been stuck in this previous universe. They're looking for a way out, and they've come across the last city, or a mega city, that is zooming its way, also looking for a way out. So they've teamed up together, and then something killed Muck Muck, the fish lantern. God only knows what. So this issue picks up. We see that a bunch of Green Lanterns are still making their way over to Mogo, and many more have been lost. And one of those that was lost was Muck Muck. And immediately, guys like, this sucks. We shouldn't have teamed up with this city. I don't trust them. Let's raise hell. Let's burn it to the ground. And Simon Baz is like, hey, maybe let's not completely generalize a group based off the actions of one bad individual. How about that? And he's like, yeah, tell that to Muck Muck. I'm sure he'd appreciate your rational thinking there. And guys just kind of really throwing in on Kilowog here. He blames Kilowog essentially for getting them into this deal. And so Kilowog angrily flies off and goes and talks to the really two big twins that are in charge of the city. And just like, hey, something just ate one of my friends. What's this all about? And she's like, oh, all right, yeah, we should probably tell you about the whole thing. And the other guy's like, no, don't. And she's like, no, we got it. They've agreed to help us. It's only good to do it. And all the Green Lanterns that have joined since then will be like, you can't not tell us about the thing now. We've been standing here. We can hear you. So she introduces this character called Marniel. And Marniel is this old being, creature thing that lives beneath the city before they ever got there. She has followers that are extreme and loyal. And she just is nihilistic, but like to the point of wanting to destroy everything. And she doesn't even care if she takes herself with it. So that's that. And apparently she has a bunch of loyal followers that if they were to actively like depose Marniel, it would split the city in half and cause civil war. So at that point, everything starts rumbling. And they're like, what the, is that Marniel? Is that what's up? And he's like, no, the planet is calling out. And they're like, oh, our planet talks too. What does yours say? And they're like, we don't know. It hasn't talked for like 100 years. And then all of a sudden, this planet, which is again very mechanized, fires up its engines and starts just zooming. And they're like, oh, it's fleeing. And it's like, fleeing what? And we see that it is fleeing this giant tear in space-time, this giant hole in the wall. And we go down to Marniel and one of her followers, and they're just like, hey, Marniel, there's a hole in everything, and it's sucking in everything around it, and it's getting bigger. And Marniel's like, all right, well, I think now's the time to strike. Let's do some terrorism. And they're like, all right, perfect, let's do it. And they use this phrase of many worlds, one fight. I don't know what it means, but it seems important. So we see Marniel's followers have some sort of bomb. They fly directly into the engine, and they blow it up. And at that point, the male twin is just like, well, she's destroyed the engines. We're screwed. This sucks. And the tear's getting bigger and everything's going to hell. And at that point, John's like, all right, we can still fix this. I need builders, engineers, anyone's good with machines with me. And the one machine Green Lantern named Stell is like, what about me? Do I count on that? And he's like, yes, you count on that. I need you to actually be like team leader here. Okay. So you're going to lead us all in there. Everyone else, block the big tear in reality. Don't let us get close to that. So we see all of them just start throwing in plywood constructs to patch up the giant hole in reality. And they're like, all right, well, we'll do what we can, but hurry it up. So they go down to the engine and they scan for life forms because they think that the terrorists are just down here. They are. And immediately the female twin just goes smack and just takes them all out, just like no problem, because, you know, she's like massive. And John's like, well, you know, I'm glad you're on our side. So we see that all the lanterns down in the engine, they're going to use Stell and John's knowledge of engineering to basically map out and recreate the engine, all the different parts it needs, and they all are going to have to move in sync, highly concentrated, but they're going to refire the engine based off of Green Lantern constructs. So that's the plan. We cut back to Marniel, who is talking to the weird guy who she's partnered up with. I cannot begin to describe the way these people look. It's simultaneously cartoonish and yet grotesque at the same time. So she's like, oh yes, many worlds, one fight, for everything yet to come. And the guy goes off, and we see that he fires off a little red detonator button, and 2 rockets blast past all the core members that were holding back the tear in reality, and they blow up the constructs. And because of that, Guy, Aricia, and Bidge, the squirrel lantern, they all start swirling into the gash, but then the big male twin one, he grabs hold and he's like, hey, I got you. Don't worry about it. But then Mauricia, whatever her name is, I cannot remember. And I just saw it on the last page there. The guy who fired off the rockets, he comes in on his ship and he blasts into the face of the large twin and causes him to lose his grip on Mauricia and Bidge, and they fall into the void and disappear into nothingness. We see the engine starts up, the Green Lanterns get the planet moving again, and guys just left standing there in space like, we just lost 2 more lanterns. Are you kidding me? So everyone else starts pulling back, the injured start moving, and Kilowog comes up to the guy like, they're gone, there's nothing you can do, we gotta go. And guy turns around and just punches him in the face. So yeah, not looking great. I like the issue in spite of the previous things that have been established in this sort of alternate universe continuity. And what I mean by that is I liked the idea that the previous miniseries established of, in general, time is running out. In general, we have this issue of, the whole universe is just dying. There is no singular person to blame. There is no bad guy. It's just something where we got to find a way out before everything goes kaput, before all the lights go out. And for this one to turn it around and say, okay, but there is also just this nihilistic terrorist who is making things worse for everyone. I don't know. I kind of like the cosmic horror aspect of all the stars are going out and you need to escape before then, rather than stop the bombs from going boom. I guess my big thing is I don't feel the tension of the end of the universe in this miniseries yet. Maybe we'll get it, but I like that overarching tension to the last one where we felt like we were winding down. We were right at the end of things. And here it just feels like, yeah, but nothing's changed for the past couple months, so we're just going to keep on going. So I think that's my only real criticism. Beyond that, everything else is fine. I like the characterization of Guy Gardner here a little more. Again, different from the last miniseries, but if this is the route we're going, I'm glad that he's angry. He should just be angry. So yeah, I'll say 7.5. I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. And yeah, we'll see what happens in the rest of the mini. Catwoman number 49, written by Frank Tieri, art by Inaki Miranda. So, yeah, last issue we got that there was a bounty going out on Catwoman, and it appears that Killer Croc has betrayed her. I can't believe this. So we open up this issue by showing that literally everybody has gotten the alert that Catwoman has $1 million bounty on her head. Riddler, Deadshot, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, Black Mask, and Victor Zsasz. However, Catwoman points out, usually you got a little bit of a warning. You were aware that you had a bounty before everyone else did. But now we live with the internet. So, nope. So we open up with Killer Croc still choking out Catwoman, and she's like, oh, you're selling me out? And he's like, yeah, it's $1 million. And she's like, yeah, but it's Penguin. You hate Penguin. He's the worst. And she's like, yeah, but $1 million, Penguin could be my high school sweetheart for all I care. And it's at that point he gets a battering in the back, and we see Batgirl has joined in. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, did I interrupt something here? Just seems like something I should be a part of. She provides just enough of a distraction for Catwoman to slash at Croc's eyes. And then she goes over to Batgirl just being like, look, this is all a big mix-up. I'm going to get out of here. And Batgirl's like, you're wanted for murder. I at least need to take you into the authorities. If it's a mix-up, you can get it sorted there. And she's like, that's not going to really work for me. So Batgirl takes down Catwoman. Catwoman's like, all right, fine. You want to do it that way? Let's do it that way. And so they start fighting. And Catwoman's like, oh, she's good. She's really damn good, but she still has her limits. I'm able to push past that. I can take things a little further than she does. And as she's choking Batgirl out with her whip, Croc gets back up and he's just like, excuse me, you might have forgotten about me back here. And he picks both of them up and just slams them down to the ground. As they are, Batgirl's unconscious. She's just out. Catwoman's woozy. She's like, you know what? Fine. do what you're gonna do, Croc. Like, I am literally your only friend in this whole business. Everyone else, they think you're gross, they think you're ugly, they think you're unlikable and untrustworthy, but I liked you, and I trusted you, and this is how you repay me over money. Well, I'm not giving you the diamond, which is what all this is about, so kill me if you gotta. And he's just like, okay, well, when you say it like that. And then all of a sudden a GCPD helicopter shows up and just like, oh, stop, everyone's under arrest. So Croc runs interference. He says, Selena, run. Jumps on the helicopter. She tries to run, but there's SWAT at like every angle. So eventually she has to jump down a fire escape. And as she lands, the Riddler is there, saying, riddle me this. What do $1 million and a million male deer have in common? The Riddler's feeling lazy today. So she just kicks the gun out of his hand and then throws him into a dumpster. And then she gets a text that says manhole. And she's like, what? And she doesn't think about it. She just jumps down the manhole. We see that the cops are running down the alley, including Scagnetti, the new cop who's got a bone to pick with her. And they see little cat ears popping up out of a dumpster. And Scagnetti just unloads. And Bullock has to push his gun away, just like, hey, we don't do that in Gotham. We don't shoot first and ask questions later. And Scagnetti's like, yeah, that's why you have so many villains running around, you freaks. So they're about to start fighting until someone points out, like, hey, it's just her mask. She just left it in the dumpster, along with the Riddler, who miraculously you didn't shoot. So Catwoman gets more texts from a mysterious person saying like, oh, there's a cab up top, hop it in 15 seconds. And she's like, oh, well, who are you? Why are you texting me? And he's like, oh, I'm your client. I don't want to give my actual name, but you can call me Mr. Blonde. And she's like, oh, Tarantino. Okay, that's the type I'm dealing with. So basically saying like, look, I'm the one who hired you to acquire an object and I still want it. So that's what I'm helping you out of this situation for. So we see that Catwoman goes back to talk to Tesla and just like, well, you know, we can ditch your phone, he's still going to find a way to contact you, and we don't know who he is. And they're just looking over the diamond like, why does everyone want this? What's so important about this? But she mentions how in the text, the guy said the object in question, and just like, that's not how someone talks about a diamond. They talk about it if they want to hide something. And so she smashes the diamond against the table. Turns out it's actually just glass, and inside is a USB drive. It's all been a scam. They've got the paperwork doctored so that it's whatever, and just pretended that the Frost Diamond is this huge important thing. So when they plug it into a computer, turns out this is Penguin's blackmail list. This is the Penguin files. And it's got all these incriminating documents and all these supervillain celebrities, even a superhero or two. And she's like, all right, it's all clicking together. He wants it back because this is literally all the power he has. And someone else wants it because same thing. It's going to give him lots of power. So Catwoman's like, all right, this is getting a little bit big. I think it's time I finally reached out to somebody who can help us both out here. So she reaches out to Bruce Wayne. And they have a sit-down dinner, and she's like, hey, Bruce, I'm sorry I haven't contacted you sooner. I've been into some crazy stuff here. I just didn't want you to swoop in and save the day, but now this is all out of hand. And then she looks around. She's like, there are a lot of cops in here. Oh, God. Did you call the cops? And then they all start to swarm. She starts fighting against them, but she eventually gets tased and taken down by Jim Gordon in the Batsuit. And Jim Gordon comes up like, Mr. Wayne, do you have any idea why she would want to contact you? And he's like, I literally have no idea. Like, she acted like I knew her, but why would I ever associate with someone like her? And that's where the issue leaves off. Did we not get a bit where she talked to Bruce? I could have sworn I remembered that. That would have been in the last arc. That would have been Genevieve Valentine's run. But like, I could have sworn I remembered a part where she like met up with Bruce and then dropped it. Also, since when does she know Bruce is under the cowl? Did I miss that part too? Was that in Forever Evil? Maybe? I don't know. I feel like I'm missing a lot here. The rest of the issue's fine. I think it's good, you know, to still maintain this Catwoman and Croc friendship. I like that aspect of it. I like that can be a little maintained while still being frenemies in a way. And then, yeah, the reveal that it's the USB drive. More relevant now than I think it was when it was published. But hey, kudos, the timeless story. So yeah, I'm interested to see who Mr. Blonde is. I'm interested in the rest of the story. I think this is a solid piece here. The only thing I'll say is that it ended very suddenly. It didn't feel like a proper ending to the issue. It just kind of felt like out of nowhere. So I'll still say it's an 8. I think it's definitely worth that much, and I'm looking forward to the remainder of this arc, but we got room for improvement, and I'm curious to see if we can hit it. New Suicide Squad number 17, written by Tim Seeley, art by Juan Ferreyra. I believe last issue I said something along the lines of like, I'm curious where this arc goes or something like that. I said something about the previous writer. And now we get Tim Seeley, totally new writer, totally new stuff going on. So we open up in Moscow, Russia 3 months ago, particularly an area that was ravaged because of Suicide Squad's intervention with whatever it was going on there. And we see that there is a group called the Horus International. It's a non-governmental thing that is investigating Geneva Convention violations and stuff like that. And that's by U.S. troops. And he's just like, yeah, you know, I'm Canadian, Seraphine's French. Like, we're not American. Don't worry about us. And we see this troop just kick the guy in the face after he says that he's heir to a coffee fortune, and just like, you know what, the Suicide Squad, you're just as much a monster as them. You're on the leash of the Western lies or whatever like that. And eventually this kid pops in and just like, excuse me, can I have something to drink, a water, a coffee, whatever? And they offer up a water, and the troop is just like, all right, well, we'll be keeping our eyes on you. And as they care for this kid, the one guy who got his face kicked is just like, you know what? You said something right there. We might need some monsters of our own. We cut over to this group called, I believe, the Victory V's. They don't get names. It's just a random collection here. And just like, yep, nope, we always wanted something like the Victory V's. They went into battle. They went in for anything, any threat for their country. They defended it. And it looks like they were all just killed. Just all super murdered. So then we cut over to Belle Reeve, and we see who is talking is this British guy who is apparently acting on behalf of the British government to make their own Suicide Squad. He's like, look, it's hard to come by heroes, superpowered heroes that fight in our nation's interest. We need that, though. So we're curious what you do to get these superpowered villains to get to fight. Like, we're hoping that we could do something similar. And Waller's like, okay, well, I'm going to take you down and we're going to show you firsthand like what it is that we're looking for in these criminals. And he's like, okay, but I have to warn you, I have a very nervous bladder. And if I get spooked too much, you're not going to like the results. And he's like, fine. So as they make their way in, Waller makes the thing of just like, you can't just sit back and watch. You got to be like diving in like with a great white and you're holding a bucket full of chum. So we go down to the D block, which is where all the people who are unable to join the Suicide Squad yet are still menaces or whatever, they're all kept in here. We see Black Manta, Parasite, Mudslide, Crow Jane, the Lamplighter, and New Wave. I don't know if I'm supposed to know these people, but apparently they aren't fit for whatever. And so is Captain Boomerang. He's down here as well. And they make a joke at Captain Boomerang, just like, what a stupid name. Well, it was Lady Lawn Dart taken. And Walter's like, hey, look, yes, he has a dumb name, but that's kind of to mask the fact that he is a very capable member. He's only kept off the team because he can't stop running his mouth. And then we go up to the A block, which is where the actual team, we're going to be meeting them this time. They say, like, yeah, we have to have a higher security here because in order to keep our team ready to go at any moment, we have to keep them fresh. And that's where we go to Cheetah's cell block, where she is literally eating a zebra. Just goring it alive, and she turns to face the guy, and he's just like, all right, well, I didn't need to see that. So they make their way down to Harley's cell. It turns out she gave herself a therapy course of writing herself love letters in order to cheer her up and let her know things are okay. So there's that, and then like Harley just lunges at the guy. There's glass separating them, but he's like, oh my god, okay, yep, nope, there goes my nervous bladder. We then cut down to El Diablo, just in time for the movie's release. We say that he is actually free to go. He's here of his own accord. He wants to be here. He says he wants to stay here in purgatory because he's already been to hell. And the guy's like, charming, all right. And at that point, Waller gets a call from the president saying, hey, we got to mobilize. Suicide Squad's needed to go do something. And he's like, that's a good name drop. The president. Good on you for that. And she's like, okay, but like, it's true. We got to get ready to go. So let me go talk to our team leader. And she approaches a cell where Deadshot's in there. And he's like, yep, you just point us where we need to go and cue the lights. That's all we need. So at that point, Deadshot calls him out for being like, oh, you know, perhaps I'll die tragically or legendarily. Maybe you'll get to watch as you die a slow death of deep-fried fish and Hackney carriage exhaust. And the guy's just like so offended. He's like, all right, well, let's get out of here. So they go back up in the elevator. And the guy's like, oh, geez, man, I could feel the hate in that room. It's so much. It's so in there. And she's like, that's good. Hating us, hating me, that's good. Because as long as we can unify them behind that hate, we can get them to do whatever we want. So he asks, is like, what's the key? What's the key to all of it? And he's just like, look, where I grew up, politicians and cops blamed us for our poverty. They hated us for being victims. You got to use that sort of same hatred. That's the unifying factor. So we cut to Hong Kong, where Deadshot's on a rooftop. Turns out they haven't been hired to assassinate or kill or take anything. They're hired for protection. There is a leader here, a politician who is very much for American trade, so they have to keep him alive, despite all the triads that feel like he's moving in on their business, more or less. So the team is Deadshot, El Diablo, Harley, and Cheetah. While Deadshot's up on a roof, everyone else is down in this festival that's going on called the Hungry Ghost Festival. El Diablo compares it to Dia de los Muertos. And Cheetah kind of has to be reminded, like, hey, don't forget, bomb in your neck, no killing people, don't go off script. And she, like, goes and tries to scare some kids that are walking by, and they just laugh because I guess it's all part of the festival. So at that point, the guy, Mr. Chen, gets up on stage. He's apparently has an acting streak inside of him, and he's doing this whole performance. And Harley's like, oh, this guy's great. He's doing this whole thing. He's playing a fellow who faked his own death to get away from his wife, and he made a deal with demons who are now dragging him away. And we see up on stage, he's being yoinked off stage by some masked people dressed as demons. And they're like, oh, wait, hold on. That's not part of the show. So they run in. Cheetah uses her sense of smell to smell venom, poison on a blade. They're about to strike him with it, so Harley blows it out of his hand, and then Deadshot continues to take the rest of the shots to take these guys out. Turns out that the blade was coated in poison, blah, blah. So Deadshot starts running across rooftops to get a better viewpoint of all the fighting going on and try to save the guy. Someone attacks Harley with a flaming sword, and she's just defending herself using this big, one of those guns that you pull the trigger and it says bang, like on a little flag. She's got one of those, but it has projectile bangs. Then we get a page here that I cannot... It's creative, I'll say that, but it's a 2-page spread that I'm pretty sure you can read in like almost any order. So Deadshot's leaping across rooftops. Harley, one of her flags deflects off and ends up hitting him in the leg. So he has to stop where he's running and take a shot wherever he's at. Him and Cheetah both start getting blasted by something. Meanwhile, El Diablo sets the guy's hands on fire, who's got the sword, and he's like, oh, this culture believes in 18 layers of hell, and the 16th is the mountain of flames. Let me give them a preview. So the fighting continues down there. Meanwhile, we cut over to Chang, who is being approached by somebody, and he's like, oh no, are you with the American Death Squad? And he's like, no, we're not with them. We're not here to kill you. But we're not here to save you either. And she does a thing of like lighting a little lantern boat out on a lake. And Deadshot calls into Waller like, hey, Justice League, Teen Titans, are any of these in the area? And she's like, no, why? He's like, because we just got blasted by something super, and I don't know what it is. And we see this silhouetted figure hovering above Deadshot. Meanwhile, down on the ground, Harley and El Diablo are saved from the Triad group by these super blasts. They take out all the bad guys, and Waller's like, what the hell is going on? I need someone to tell me what's happening there, or swear to God, I'll start blowing up heads. And Deadshot says, all right, please just make it beautiful. And then all of a sudden, Deadshot's heart monitor goes dead. He turns red, he's gone. We see Diablo, we see Cheetah, we see Harley. Each of them takes shots from this super beam thing. They all flatline one by one. And we cut back to that lake with the lanterns in it. And there are now 5 lanterns there instead of just the one. And someone is carrying off Chang. So we cut back to Waller, who's there with the British guy. And the British guy goes, well, time to get some more crew members, I assume. And that's it. That's where the issue leaves off. Good opening. Fine opening. No problem for it. We're getting this whole thing of like, oh, there's people who now have a vendetta against the Suicide Squad over in the Moscow sort of thing. We have the Victory Vs, which I'm sure will not come up at all. No, I'm down with this intro. I think obviously it's not going to last very long. We're in the last like 3 issues of this book, so however far we get is however far we get. But I think it is a decent enough start. And the art, they did so many good, crazy things. Like there's a page where everything is tilted, and usually that would mean everything except the text boxes and speech bubbles. But nope, they tilted that too. And it kind of messed with me for a second, but I liked it. So yeah, I'll say this one is it's a low 8, but it's still an 8. I think it's definitely gotten up to that category, and I'm pumped to see what the rest of the series could be. And I'm kind of glad that we're getting away from the mental anguish Harley that has been plaguing us for probably a couple arcs now at this point. I'm glad that she's just back to being her own zany self. Constantine, the Hellblazer, number 9, written by James Tynion IV and Ming Doyle, art by Riley Rossmo. So, last issue, we had Papa Midnight and Constantine teaming up, Constantine against his will because he has to save Oliver from a poison that Papa Midnight put in him, to get Papa Midnight's club back that is stolen by Neron, and then they all got found out at the end of the issue. This issue picks up with an introduction to Hell, specifically the city of Dis. And it's basically saying, whatever you imagine Hell to be like, it's worse. It, by definition, has to be worse. But particularly the city of Dis is kind of this idea of a trading center for demons. And all they have to trade are souls. And they get nothing out of trading it. They don't get any sort of like, oh, I can escape hell or anything like that eventually, or get like knickknacks or trinkets. They trade souls just because it's fun. By the virtue of its own trading, that's what they do. And we see this one demon seems to be dragging Oliver into Dis at this point and is like dragging him towards this big tower in the middle. We don't get any reference back to this. I don't know if it's important, but I need to say that it happens. So at that point, we then see what happened to Constantine and Midnight when they got caught. Turns out they're just being tortured like crazy. So they're basically saying like, oh, yes, if you give us your souls, if you agree to give us your souls, I'll stop torturing you and you can go free, and I'll even throw in some babes for you to have some fun with. What do you say? And Constantine's like, that sounds pretty good, but you know what, let me get my pen. And then he just spits on the demon, just like, oh, wait, that wasn't my pen. And he's just like, okay, if you want us to keep torturing you, that's fine. This is literally the most fun I've had in centuries. And Papa Midnight's like, please stop antagonizing our torturers. And it's just like, no, keep it up. So at that point, Neron steps in. He's like, oh, boy, I always forgot how stupid humans are. And as he comes in, Constantine's like, oh, Neron, I'm not going to give in, anything like that. And Neron's just like, let me show you something crazy, all right? Hell is not a literal place. I mean, it's figurative or whatever, but like your physical bodies, while maybe not technically here or whatever, that just means that I can do ungodly things and you will keep healing. And he just plunges his hand into Constantine's chest, rips out his heart, and starts chewing on it. And he's like, you're not going to age. You're not going to die. All of your wounds will be healed, and then we'll just inflict them again. You will feel every single second of it, though. And once you finally make a deal to make it stop for even just a moment, then we own your soul. And at that point, Constantine's like, well, guess I'm getting cozy then. So he looks over Papa Midnight and he's just like, what do you think? You bring a sleeping bag? I think we're going to be staying here. And Midnight's just like, I'm not talking. I ain't saying anything. So Neron is basically like, look, you are never going to be able to get out of here. proof of concept that you've given up every trace of your humanity because of all the stuff you've done, humanity will absolutely follow in your steps, except they'll sell their souls. They'll give it up 10,000 times over just for a moment to prove that magic is real. It's going to be so easy to take over the world, you ain't even going to believe it. New York City is going to become our new center of inter-hell commerce. I'm going to be the most powerful, richest entity in heaven or hell. And then one of the little drone guys steps up and is just like, well, actually, second most powerful after Lord Lucifer. And then Neuron just fire breaths his skin off. And he's like, yep, nope, most powerful, as I was saying. So I'm going to make you a deal. You join me on the top side. I'll give you everything you wanted, magical power and all that stuff. And you won't have to see hell for like a couple of decades minimum. What do you say? And Constantine's like, oh, I think I'm going to pass. What about you, Papa Midnight? Papa Midnight's like, yeah, look, we could have had an opportunity to deal, but you stole my place out from under me. So no deal. And Neon's like, all right, well, let the torturing continue. However, I'm going to give you guys a break. Just one last break so that you can really, really savor it, really take it in when we end that break and then start the torturing again. So he lets them down, lets them free, and pisses off. So at that point, Constantine's like, all right, what do we got? How are we going to get out of hell? And Midnight's like, what are you talking? There's nothing. We're in hell. This is bad. We got nothing here. There's nothing we can do. I hear you. I know you want to get out of here, but like, I don't have a plan. And he's just like, all right, well, look, it's you and me we're talking about. There's got to be something we could do. And then all of a sudden the ground starts rupturing and a platform opens up and out of it comes Blythe from like issue 1. And Blythe's like, oh, hello, Constantine. Sorry, I brought along some clothes. Sorry I'm late. I went shopping. So he tosses over some bags to Constantine and basically just like, Pop Midnight's like, who the hell is this? And he's like, oh, well, Blythe is an old friend. And he's like, yeah, friend. Wink, 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 wink. So he basically says, look, everything, I know how to get out of here. I can help you escape. All the entrances to Earth are blocked except for one that I can get you to. The trade-off is that you take me with you. I do not want to be stuck in hell here anymore. You help me get out. That's how this goes. And he's just like, all right, that's the deal. And he's like, yep, that's it. And he's like, all right, well, can't refuse. Let's go. So they go down into this platform, which turns out to be an entrance to the sewer. As they make their way through, Papa Midnight and Blythe start flirting to an extent, or at least Blythe likes Papa Midnight, and Constantine's like, yeah, all right, let's keep the talking to a minimum here. So as they make their way to the edge of the sewer, there's this weird shaped demon that like his mouth yells out, hey, look behind you, trying to get the attention of the eyes, and the eyes don't turn fast enough, and Blythe just completely goes for the jugular, like rips this guy's head off. And Constantine's like, well, I guess you did like me because I never got a bite quite like that. And he's just like, oh, no, you were target practice. So as they're making their way through this town, hoping not to be noticed, Constantine can't help but light up a cigarette, to which one of them recognizes it and be like, that's a human smell. There are human souls here. Everyone, human souls. And everyone starts just coming down on them saying like, oh, the human soul is mine. Let's go, let's go. Seems to me, though, that they don't actually do anything to avoid it. Like, I thought I missed something here, but it's like, for whatever reason, they all just start attacking each other over who gets the human souls, and so they're able to just walk right through. They get to this statue that's a fountain of blood made from the corpse of a first fallen angel that Neuron killed. And so when they get close to it, apparently the fountain has the ability to make any demon see the truth or tell the truth or something. So when two demons just come out of nowhere, start going to attack them, Constantine laps up the blood on them and says like, hey, there, you've had a taste. Now, wouldn't you two rather eat each other? And they go, yeah, I think I would. So then they start attacking each other again. So everyone starts making their way down to this exit, and when they get there, Blythe is like, oh, crap. Neuron must have figured that you got out because there's a guard here now, so we're not going to be able to go through this one. And Papa Midnight's like, all right, one guard, I can do this. Let everyone stand back. Let me show you how a sorcerer can draw energy even from another plane of existence. And then Constantine drops a cinder block on the guard's head and kills him. So or at the very least knocks them out. So they start making their way towards the gate, but the only way to activate it is with human blood freely given. They need someone to volunteer up blood, so Constantine's like, fine, use mine, whatever. And Blythe is like, okay, cool, but you need to go last through the portal, because once the person whose blood it is goes through the portal closes. And he's like, right, fine, whatever. Just pick up the pace, because Oliver is up there dying of this poison that Papa Midnight's the only one who has any sort of cure for. And Papa Midnight's like, ooh, right, I lied. I needed you to join me, and I was never actually going to hurt Oliver. Like, he's fine. There's no poison in him. Like, he's totally cool. And Constantine's like, so you tricked me to do this? You tricked me? Like, what? I'm just like a commodity, a resource to trade around? So the portal opens up, and it's like, now, John, let's not get hasty here. We're all trying to get out of hell here. And Constantine lights up a cigarette as a bunch of new guards come up behind them, and he's like, you know, I don't care. I really don't care anymore. And he just goes to step through the portal, and he's like, now look, Oliver would understand. Oliver would forgive, and he would take that. And he's like, no, I'm not forgiving. I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting you, and I'm leaving without you. And Blythe was like, wait a minute, hold on. What about me? We had a deal. You had to at least let me through. And he's like, nope, both of you could choke on it. And he just goes through the portal. However, he doesn't end up on Earth. He ends up in some other magical land where there's a centaur and fairies and like a faun. So, welcome to the Sandman universe, I guess. I don't know. I had the same issue, or the same problem last issue, which is I felt like I wasn't getting a really good grip on it. I felt like there's a larger idea here at play, and I like the larger idea of like, okay, Neron's got this thing of like taking over the entire New York City area. Magic is bleeding through on both sides. I like that. But there was an aspect to it that was just a bit too confusing. And I think for that one, it was the idea of going through the different levels and like all the other demons who were like worshiping Neron. For this one, it's Blythe, and it's all the like back history that may or may not be there, and like why John has a thing against Blythe to begin with. There's a lot at play, and I don't blame the book itself. I feel like if I really, really immersed myself in it, like read the whole trade all in one sitting, I think I would easily get it. But month to month, it's just kind of separating enough where I don't feel like I have that good of a grip on motivations and continuing storylines. So call that a writing flaw, call it what you will, writing for the trade. I'm still going to give it a 7.5. I think it is a very good issue, but it's kind of feeling to me the way that the first Constantine series we had did, where for a while there we were just bouncing around to different locations. I'm kind of getting that feel here, and that was my least favorite time with that book, so I'm hoping to get out of that. Black Canary number 8, written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Sandy Jarrell. So the whole of the last arc happened. It was a whole big thing, and at the end of it, apparently both Dinah, Black Canary, and Ditto, the young girl, disappeared, and they are nowhere to be found, so Black Canary, the band, is seemingly over. But we open up with the remaining members, including Heathcliff, are being investigated by the police, and they're being interrogated, and they're like, look, we know that you had something to do with it. Your old singer Maeve is already behind bars because she had a whole other thing going on, and you guys were at that stadium, the stage battle together when all this happened. So what is it? Tell us what happened before your fancy pants lawyers get here. And they're just like, look, we told you before, we were contracted to play in that stadium. We don't know why, but like all that stuff happened. It was completely against us. We were just playing our music. That's all it was. And they're just like, right. And what about the reports that your lead singer and your guitarist are both just gone? And what about the man that jumped up on stage and just disappeared in a puff? And before they can get any more out, the legal team is there, paid for by the record label. So they're just like, look, don't count on being free for long. We're gonna get something that sticks, and you're gonna be back in here before you know it. So they all get walked outside, and they're just like, okay, well, what happened? Where's Kurt Lance? Like, why haven't we seen more of him? What's going on? Also, is Ditto still at Kurt's apartment? Because like that seems like a really bad idea with people looking out for him. And lawyers are like, look, don't worry about Mr. Lance. Here's an envelope. Take it. It's an urgent matter. And when they open it up, they see that there is flyer pamphlet for Black Canary playing in Germany, in Berlin, and a little sticky note on it says, Dinah needs your help, find her in Berlin, all your expenses are paid, your tickets are also in the envelope, just head to the airport. So it's like, all right, well, Dinah's alive, she's in trouble, looks like we're going back on tour. We cut over to Dinah, who is currently fighting some kind of ninjas, beats me. And she's going up against them. She has this collar around her neck, which is seemingly keeping her from using her canary cry. But as she is fighting, we see there is a very obvious leader who has another necklace around her neck. But this one's like, all right, enough. She's beaten up enough of my people. Send her back to the cells. So she gets walked back into the cells, and we see that inside the cell with her is another woman saying, hey, did Gray Eyes, the name of the person who's taken them, is Gray Eyes wearing my necklace, my totem necklace? And it turns out this is Vixen, who I can't remember if we've seen in New 52, but here she is. And she's like, yeah, well, Canary gives a thumbs up, and she's like, oh, great. Looks like you got cut somewhere in the middle of all that. Let me take my designer label fashion stuff and make you a bandage out of that, because that's my civilian identity, is fashion designer and all that. So she gives the rundown of like, Dinah's not able to use her voice because of that thing around her neck, but if they can figure out how to get the totem away from Gray Eyes, then they can use that to break out of whatever place, because Vixen can use its ability. However, as they're talking, the white ninja lady from before showed up, and we finally get the confirmation of who the hell this is. Turns out it's Dinah's aunt. It is her mother's sister. And she's like, well, Vixen, I could break you all out now, but me and my niece need to figure out what happened to her mother. And Vixen's like, who the hell are you? I've never even seen you before. Like, if you could break us out, break us out. We can also do your thing if you so want. And she's like, oh, no. We've waited a long time. We searched all over, and I trust Dinah to be able to get the job done. And they like clasp hands between the bars. And it's a whole thing that they get into here, but basically like, yes, I was watching you, Dinah, you're a great fighter, including the things that I taught you there. Before long, they'll bring you before headmistress Ravanathana, and that's when we'll strike. That's when we'll make her talk. And Vixen's like, for real though, you're gonna help me get out of here, right? And then the aunt, which I believe is Aunt Reha, it says it in the end, turns out her and Dinah's mom made a martial arts group, and it was like a small but like very dedicated group of women together, and they had built themselves a family. Dinah's mom went off and built her own little family. Once like they were done, they were like, okay, we're going our separate ways. But then evil started coming after the people who were members of this group, so she left Dinah to go out on her own. And the killers were looking for something, and now that they've tracked down Dinah because of her pop star celebrity status, they're going to try to get to it through her. And it turns out it is a specific technique called the Five Heavens Palm that only the mother knew, but they expect Dinah knows as well. So Vixen asks, okay, where were you during her entire life before this? And Aunt goes, none of your business. Goodbye now. And just leaves. So we go to the plane where the rest of the band is. Wouldn't you know it, Maeve shows up, and they're like, Maeve, what are you doing here? And they read the itinerary and just like, oh, Maeve's actually on the manifest. She's on our tickets. And it's like, okay, but we can like call the cops because she's also evil. And she's like, no. I was brought here by Kurt. He wants me to help because I've got the screamy powers, and I just want to look after Ditto. And Ditto's like, thumbs up. So Vixen talks to Dinah, says like, hey, I'm a big Black Canary fan. I just thought you should know that. I also watched you fight during the Throne of Atlantis stuff all those years back, so that was awesome. That was cool. Like, we've got a lot in common, and that's why I want to apologize for doing this, but like, I can't stay in this cell any longer. And she bashes her head against the bars. It starts bleeding, and she lays down on the ground and just yells out, help, guard, she's attacking me, help me. The guards come in and say, hey, no fighting in between rounds, no fighting in your cell, you're going to be punished. And as soon as they open up the cells, Vixen just starts kicking ass, throwing punches. She's like, Dinah, we're free, let's get out of here. Then the aunt shows up and is like, nope, and kicks Vixen back in. And as the guards just start beating her up, and the aunt goes over to Dinah and is just like, hey, don't worry about her. We have a plan. if she does this, it's all going to be in jeopardy. So we need the answers. You just stay in here for a little while longer. And Dinah sees Vixen getting the crap kicked out of her and is just like, nope. So she starts beating up the guards, presses a button on one of their wrists to release her collar, and now she's able to talk again. So at that point, the aunt's like, all right, fine, that's what you want to do. All of our plans out the window, but fine, sure, let's go. We see Gray Eyes comes in being like, oh, stop right there. She causes Canary cry, knocks out Gray Eyes, grabs hold of Vixen's totem. Vixen puts it on and immediately goes form of elephant and just bashes through a wall. And she's like, all right, fair, fine enough. On the other side of the wall, however, are a bunch of other guards. So she's like, can you maybe like turn it into an eagle or something? Can we get that out? And she's like, yeah, I think I could do that, probably. And Dinah's like, all right, well, let me take care of the bunch of them. And she starts up another Canary cry, but then all of a sudden Gray Eyes comes in with a chain wrapped around Dinah's neck and is just like, oh, here I thought you were here for the love of the game, that I'd be able to see you get some match, like we'd be able to fight at some point, but I guess we're gonna have to push that up to now. And this lady, Gray Eyes, has lightning powers or like lightning spells, because she says a little thing and then she zaps Canary. Vixen goes bear style and just slaps Gray Eyes across the face, but Canary's like, no, I want to finish her off. So they do a beam struggle of lightning versus Canary Cry, and Canary Cry, of course, wins out. But then we see Aunt Raina, that's her name, Raina, is standing there amongst the guards, and Canary's like, we have to go back for her. And Vixen's like, what are you talking about? She's clearly not on our side. Like, I know you want your family and all that, and you've waited so long for this, but you don't know her. You don't know what she wants, and clearly she's not in your best interests. So Canary considers for a second and then just beats the crap out of some more guards and it's just like, all right, fine, let's go. So Vixen gets eagle powers, flies out, and Vixen's like, all right, I don't even know where we're at. She's like, oh, we're outside of Berlin. Where do we want to go? And she's like, well, I got to get back to Gotham. I'm worried that my team, if they like find out where I went to, will try to help me and they'll like come here. And after everything that we've been through here, that's the last thing I want for them. So I guess I got to go back because I'm refusing to put Black Canary, the band, in danger again. So we see she goes to the airport, is getting a ticket for Gotham. Literally in the background, we see the band walking out of the airport, getting a taxi. There's something about some 80s band that's playing, and so Maeve wants to check it out because she's starstruck by it. And then as they look at the flyer or whatever, they realize that the club is not what it seems because there's a demon-looking thing in the background. I'll be honest, I don't understand what that last page means at all. So, yeah. The Vixen thing is weird. I won't say it's not. It's weird that Vixen is there. If we were going to do a thing where it's like, oh, we're bringing in all the best fighters or whatever, then like say that. But we really have like zero justification for why she's here outside of she had the totem necklace. Other than that, like, I hope we get more payoff to the Aunt Raina stuff because I really liked the setup for that. I really liked what we were doing there. And if it really is just going to be a thing of like, oh no, she's not really in your best interest or whatever, like, I don't know. I kind of want it to be something. I can't tell exactly what yet. It's going to depend on how the story plays out, but I just don't want it to be this thing where she's not actually the aunt or like she's playing second fiddle to some larger villain or something like that. I want it to actually be real. So we'll see what happens when we get there. I think this one is easily like a 7. It's not the best issue that we've had of this book. I think it pales in comparison to the last issue even, but it's at least starting something interesting theoretically. I just don't feel like it's as interesting as what these last like 2 or 3 issues were doing. So 7, hoping for the best. Earth 2 Society number 9, written by Dan Abnett, art by Jorge Jiménez. So last issue, we had Hawkgirl stumbling across Fury and her compadre of Amazonian women, and also there's a whole thing with war brewing on Earth 2. So we open up with Fury asking Kendra in the middle of like a fight, like, oh, do I scare you? And Kendra's just sitting over to the side like, nope. And we see she's training, sparring with all of her Amazons. And internally, she's like, this place is so much more high tech than anything else we have in Earth 2. And also these women are sanely strong and like huge combat advantage over us. So like, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about all this stuff, but I'm just going to tell her nope when she asks me if I'm scared. And then Fury says, oh, I see hesitation. She's like, look, I'm not hesitating, but like you're intimidating and this is a lot to take in. And like, I'm not sure what you intend for the world at large. And Fury's like, I appreciate you saying that, but I was talking about hesitation with my sparring partner here. She's not using her full strength. And the sparring partner is just like, sorry. This is my first time with the borrowing and I'm not used to my strength. I'm not sure if I'll hurt you. And she's like, you literally cannot hurt me. And so she pairs them off to start fighting with each other and just like, yeah, you know, got to keep exercising. She's like, there's spin classes. And Fury's like, yeah, this is easier. Also, we might have to be ready for a war because I've been hearing over the radio a lot of chatter that like Earth 2 is going to war. And Hawker's like, I don't know anything about that. I've been out here for like a month and a half. But yeah, it's been a lot. And Fury's like, do you choose isolation? Like, do you want to be completely separated from everyone else? And Hawker's like, Jesus, you're direct. And she's like, yep, that's me. Look, if you want to ask me questions, I will be straight up direct with you. Like, I'm the daughter of Steppenwolf and Wonder Woman. Like, I'm used to people not liking me and not wanting to be around me. So walk with me and ask me whatever you want. She's like, all right, fair enough. Why have you hidden your city away? So we cut over to the rest of the JSA. Not that they're called that yet, but you know what I mean. The Wonders. And we see that the governor of the Ark home colony, which it did take me until this issue to get that, is basically saying, yeah, we're willing to go to war if there's oil under that land between us and the Erebus colony. It's what we need to do, and we're not going to listen to World Army officials who say that we should do mediation because, like, that's pansy talk. So we see Khalid is listening to this, and it's just like, oh, yeah, that's Galen Sackhoff. He's the governor. He's not okay, and like apparently any World Army people are not welcome in Ark home. And it's like, yeah, all right. Well, Huntress, what do you got over on your side? And we see that the Erebus people, Governor Rudell, is like, oh, are you on the phone with Sato, Huntress? You tell her that if the World Army steps in, we're going to spill their blood too. And Huntress is like, what do you mean too? What do you mean by that? You already made up your mind what you're going to be doing here? And we see Sato and Sandman are in the back like, oh, this isn't good. We really are staring down the barrel of this. There's no way that these people are going to back down. And we see troops are already amassing. They're being deployed. Like, everything is happening to try to defend this land because they believe natural resources are underneath it. No proof, just believe. So at that point, we see the hostilities start mounting, and they try to send in their deterrent, Power Girl, who comes in and is just like, look, I'm offended that you think I would use non-lethal means. You have to specifically tell me otherwise. But yeah, I'm going in. I'm going to stop these people from doing anything stupid. And Sato calls in and is just like, Alan, Green Lantern, are you watching this? And he's just sitting at a table with Lois Lane, who's, of course, Red Tornado. And just like, yeah, I'm keeping aware. You keep me advised. And Lois is like, is there a problem? He's like, no. Just, we're all going to war. And I really didn't want this world to end up the same as our last one. I thought maybe we could avoid this, but you know, that's what we got to do. So, Lois, the reason I brought you here today is I want you to write our Constitution. If all of these people are going to fight with each other, I want us to lay down clearly what we're all united for and be able to have that. And you are politically minded. You're a great writer. I think you are absolutely perfect for this job. And she's like, well, why not you? You know, you're much more in tune with the planet. And he's like, well, I've recently been accused of being a god. And yeah, I might be a little bit too separated from all this. I really don't think that I'm going to be able to do it. So are you aware that like most people fear the Wonders? Are you aware of that? And he's like, oh, I mean, yeah, I just can't imagine why. And so we see Power Girl is just standing in the middle of this crowd of hostiles as they're all dropping their guns and shouting that they surrender. And it's like, well, good news, I got them surrender. Bad news, we have 2 more of those giant, crazy terraform beasts showing up, so I'm going to need backup from Green Lantern. Lantern's like, oh, right, okay. Lois, I got to go. You take care of the Constitution. Bye. And she writes down on the paper, in God we trust, and then immediately crosses it out. By the way, he mentioned earlier on that one of the things he wants is completely free elections. That's something that he wants enshrined in the Constitution as absolutely necessary, but that's pretty much all he says. So Lantern comes in, starts taking care of the terraform beasts, and just like, yeah, no, we think this is a byproduct of the terraforming incident and all that stuff. And Power Girl's like, yeah, I know, I was there. You don't have to tell me again. She's like, oh, right, yeah, anyway. we looked at the genetic makeup of the one that we stopped yesterday, and we realized that there's no way it could have been an arbitrary consequence of the terraforming. Somebody designed this creature. It had intelligent design behind it. And she's like, that's kind of weird for you to say as a god. And he's like, not a god. I want to be clear about that. But like, yeah, someone built these things to cause havoc. Meanwhile, Sato's on the phone with Commander Steele and Balzad, and just like, yeah, look, we scanned the ground that these people are fighting over. There's no oil here. They're fighting, there's nothing here. They're about to kill each other over literal nothing. So what do we do? What do we do about this? And he's like, look, people are fighting over natural resources. Like, whether they believe us or not, they're going to keep fighting. So then we go to Batman, who's, of course, Dick Grayson's talking to Red Arrow. And he's basically saying the same of like, yeah, look, everything's going tits up because of them fighting over natural energy. And of course, what Batman saw before was the black market of these batteries that are being resold and all that. And he's like, look, the Nimbus Solutions, they're making a fortune supplying these fuel cells, but because it is priced so high, a black market has opened up, a crime economy based off racketeering, extortion, and murder. And Red Arrow's like, so what, we're going to steal from the rich, give to the poor? Because, like, I'm down for that. And he's like, no, it's worse. We got to go in and check out on this form of dirty fusion and see what kind of, like, radioactive waste and stuff is going on. We have to close that down. The black market can't stand. And then in comes Ted Grant, a.k.a. Wildcat. I swear to God he died. Like, maybe I'm misremembering, but I swear to God he died in the previous, like, before or during World's End. I guess I'm wrong, but regardless, he's like, hey, you hear the news? It's a war between Erebus and Arcome. He's like, yeah, well, they're not the only ones. We're going to war against Nimbus. Let's go. So, yeah, as they're scanning this thing, they realize that there's absolutely no oil in there. Balzad comes up with a theory that he's talking to Green Lantern with, and he's like, look, this planet was made by Brainiac. It's a facsimile. It was after convergence and all that. I think it's meant to look like Earth from the outside, but like it's not a perfect copy. Inside the planet, down in the crust underneath, I think it's just a barren rock. I don't think there's any sort of resources down there. Life cannot be sustained on Earth 2 for very long unless we can solve that problem. So we cut back over to the Amazonians and Fury, and just saying like, yeah, well, you asked me why we hid the city away. We've always been feared and suspected of bad things, so I just chose to remove us away from all this before anything else started. And now that there are like 3 million people here, they're all going to have to work together and all that. So Fury's like, oh, okay, it sounds like you're not actually pushing for isolationism. It sounds like you're pushing for us to join the rest of the world. And she's like, look, I don't like being a part of that, but like, yeah, I came out here looking for lost souls and bringing them into the community and all that. If you have all this technology and all that stuff, it might help the world. And Green Lantern's pushing towards like free elections and a world society and all that. And Fury's like, look, I hear what you're saying, but like, it didn't work before. The World Army is still playing with leadership and all that. The Amazon culture has ancient wisdom in governance, and I think the people should look to us for governance. And Hawkgirl's like, I'm sorry, are you saying that you should rule the world? And Fury's like, look how good your method's working. And so Hawkgirl's like, okay, hold on. One of your people mentioned something about the borrowing. What's that about? And also, where are the rest of the people who were on your ship when it crashed? Because like, that you came on a ship, right? And he's like, look, the borrowing is just a means for survival, and when it comes down to the people on my ship, they all died and the Amazons have taken their place. And that's the issue. Okay, I like the idea that Earth 2 is unsustainable. I like that as a concept because, I mean, we'll probably have a solution by the end of the arc. I don't doubt that, but I like the concept of like, here is something that cannot be overcome by human perseverance alone. Here is something that will require an outside force to come in and fix things. And it's going to add that little bit of extra tension of like, how do they fix something like this while also mediating all the problems of energy scarcity and everything like that? So I like the political aspect. I'm down with that. I hope it continues to explore that. And Fury also pushing for some realm of either monarchy or fascism, like also interesting. So yeah, no, I'm down with this book. I'm really getting into it. The first arc was hard to get into, but I think this one's really selling it for me. So I'm going to say an 8.5. I think I was going to say 8, and then I just like, you know what? No, I think out of most of the books that I read this week, this is one that's like one of the ones I enjoyed the most. So yeah, 8.5. Looking forward to seeing where it goes from there. Gotham Academy number 15, written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Adam Archer, or at the very least, the framing device is, because we're still in the yearbook arc, which is to say it's an anthology book now. We have a couple of short stories collected from a bunch of different writers/artists, and the Brendan Fletcher stuff is just the framing device. So we open up with Maps and Olive talking about wanting stories about teachers, wanting some good stuff about them. And just like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure why we'd want anything about Professor Lilac or whatever. And Maps is pushing for stories until Colton busts in and says, oh, hey, what about the staff party? And they're like, oh, Colton, how did you get in here? And he's like, oh, I have my ways. But anyway, yeah, the staff party, you can talk about that, the exceptional staff party. And we get a story by Zach Gorman writing in art where it's the Gotham Academy staff party. We get introduced to I believe it's Professor Scarlet or Mr. Scarlet, who apparently everything at the staff party is egg-based. And there's some professor there who's just making egg puns to all the women around. And it's just like, oh, God, why are you even friends with that guy? We see Kirk Langstrom is talking to Mr. Scarlet. All of a sudden, his wife/girlfriend at this point, I don't know who, sees him, yells out his name, says, hey, I love this song, come on, let's go dancing. And he's like, wait, I don't know what. And then Headmaster Hammer's there with Scarlet and saying like, oh, Mrs. Scarlet, do try to have some fun. So we see that he just goes over, sits in a corner with a book, and we see the egg guy walking by making another excellent pun. And that's it. That's the story. Maps and Colton are watching through the floorboards or through like a side panel of the wall, and Maps is like, man, why is this party so boring? Who knew staff parties were boring? And Colton says, everybody knew that. Literally everybody. And that's the story. So we then cut over to Pommeline, who's like, the teachers know too much. It's almost as if they can see into our dreams. And they're like, what, for real? You think that's actually a thing? And they start talking about, they want a Hammerhead story, but Olive's like, okay, well, what about that time we were playing Serpents and Spells? And then we get a story by Eduardo Medeiros and Rafael Albuquerque, where they're just playing D&D. We see that Olive is not happy with the game, says it's a stupid and that her character died or whatever. And Maps is like, oh, it's not stupid. You just don't know how the game works. You need to understand the logic of your opponent. And so they both take a nap. And then all of a sudden, this crow comes in, pecks at the window, flies in and starts talking, saying, oh, I need your help in this quest to find the book. And they're just like, what Maps, is this part of your game? But then they start rolling the dice, and then they're suddenly transported into this fantasy realm where they are both their players. Maps is a barbarian, Olive is a wizard. And the crow raven is like, oh, the book holds secrets that imprison me in this creature's body. You have to go find it, but beware, it's under control of the Lich. So they make their way into a maze, dungeon-looking thing. And the raven tries leading them down. He's just like, oh, don't worry, I'll make sure you don't face any peril. And then a bunch of giant spiders start crawling down the walls, so they have to fight against that. Maps uses her club to take them all out. And as they turn the corner, they come across the Lich. So the book is inside the Lich's containment. Maps gets blasted by some magic. She's out for a little bit. And then Olive gets grabbed by some hands out of the wall. Turns out the Raven was working for the Lich, or the Lich is under control of the Raven the whole time. So it's like, oh, yeah, I was just leading you here the whole time. I had to use you to get me down into the book. And then it's just like yelling at Olive, just saying like, you're stupid. No one likes you and you're good for nothing. And she lashes out in anger, telling it to shut up. And then all of a sudden, they appear in the library. They're surrounded by gas, and it turns out Scarecrow put them under fear toxin. And he's like, haha, that book will be mine, whether you're under my control or not. And as Scarecrow's about to leap after them, Headmaster Hammer comes out of nowhere with a baseball bat and hits him over the head. And it's like, oh, Headmaster, what's so special about this book that he wants? And he's like, give me that. Get back to bed. And she's like, oh, geez, okay, bye. So then we see Headmaster opens up the book, and inside is a locket that belonged to his wife. And he's like, all right, Mr. Crane, I don't know why you want this so much, but lucky for me, it's pest control season at the academy. And he gets back out his baseball bat. That's that story. Then we're at the library. We see them all talking, and just like, oh, hey, I've got another thing that we can talk about, something we can put into the thing. The best nose in Gotham will lead us to all the good stories. It's our old pal Ham the dog. So we get a story by Mingjue Helen Chen, and we see I think it's Professor McPherson, Ham's owner, is telling like, oh, you be a good boy today, all right? And as soon as she walks out, he just leaps out the window and starts exploring the academy grounds. We see him pass by some kids who are obviously talking about Olive and her friends, and they're just saying like, man, they're so weird. They got like a secret society and all that. It's just crazy. And all the kids are like petting him as he passes by. And eventually he makes his way to a headless statue, and there's a hole in a wall behind it that is full of just all sorts of goodies and knickknacks and little things like that. So he crawls in and takes a little nap in there. All of a sudden, he sees a hand outside the hole that's offering up a chew toy or a bone shaped like a hammerhead. And he says, oh, hey, Ham, like, here's your own little hammerhead. Maybe now you'll stop chasing the real one. And we see that this is, I believe his name is Christian. I could be wrong. The Man-Bat kid. He's like, yeah, you found a pretty awesome spot here. I'd be happy to relax here with you. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. And he just pets the dog. That's it. That's the issue. It just ends there. I was already a little bit mid on the last issue. I'm not huge on, we threw away the entire idea of, oh, this book's about mysteries and like got a Scooby-Doo gang thing going on. And then we're just doing this thing where it's a bunch of small stories ostensibly fleshing out the school itself. Last issue, I felt that it did pretty decently. This issue, no. I don't know who the professors were in that first story. I don't know what the framing device was trying to convince me of for the rest of the stories. They're fine enough stories on their own, but the framing device is so lacking that it's like, just, if you want to do an anthology, just do an anthology. I don't need this framing device here making things more confusing. So yeah, I don't... It's hard to judge because each of the individual stories is okay. They're all fine. I like the last one. Mingjue actually did the art for several issues of this book already, so it blends right in naturally with everything else. But then the other artists, like, they're good. Raphael Albuquerque, they're good, but it is absolutely not the style of this book. So collectively, 6.5. This arc feels tedious. This arc feels like we're biding time for something, and considering we're winding down to the end of the New 52, I don't know what we're waiting for. It feels like we just didn't have another arc in us, and at which point, just don't publish the book at that point. Telos number 5, written by Jeff King, art by Igor Vitorino. So, last issue, a whole convoluted plot of Telos being blamed for the fall of Computo and Kolu, and now he's got a whole armada in front of him that he's got to face down, and he just does. He just does. We see there's a Dominator, a Kund warrior, and an Okaran, I don't know, general or something, and they're leading this massive fleet against Telos, and he's opening up portals in space and time and like jumping around, like, I don't want to say Rick and Morty style, but it's Rick and Morty style, and he just keeps on popping out, causing some damage. and then bopping over to the next one. And he's like, yeah, okay, every time I do this, I lose a little bit of energy. The Brainiac didn't give me unlimited, like I am growing weaker, but I've still got more than enough energy to do this. So as he's already destroyed a massive amount of the fleet, he goes towards a big hollowed out asteroid that he is... like everyone else is like, haha, he's trapped himself. He's inside of there. But then he blasts out the back, causes it all to explode into rubble, and then uses his powers to throw these massive asteroids at the ships, causing even more of them to explode. And as they're doing this, we see the, what's the name? The Kund warriors like, oh, you fight well, but you cannot escape us. And then he just blows up like 50% of all of the ship, all of the fleets here. And the Okaran one is like, nobody has ever defeated an Alliance Armada single-handedly. It ain't gonna happen. So they instead send out their SWAT team, especially, which is the Sicari, who apparently have special temporal disruptors, which means you can't Rick and Morty everywhere. So they come in and they just start beating them up. And they're like, okay, now that he's stuck there, now that he's unable to move, we're going to fire our super weapon directly at his face. And it's like, but what about the Sicari? And they're like, what about the Sicari? So they're about to fire it up when all of a sudden a giant green beam just like breaks the mothership in half, just absolutely destroys it. And as the whole thing explodes, Telos is like, wait a minute, the energy signature is Owen. And we see that it is Parallax Green Lantern from Convergence who shows up, and he's like, hey Telos, that's the second time I've saved your ass if you count Convergence. And he's like, I don't need your help, Parallax. And he's like, really? Because like it looks like you were getting your ass beat there. Hold on a minute. And he throws two blasts at Telos. They zoom right past him, and Telos is like, yo bro, what are you doing? And he's like, no, there were two guys behind you, don't worry about it. And he's like, yeah, I know, I needed them alive. I want to have them go and tell their commanders that like they need to call off this whole thing. And Parallax just goes and like murders all of them, no hesitation. He's like, bro, you just blew up half of their armada. They got the message. You don't need them to relay it back. Anyway, yeah, the reason I'm here to begin with is that little doodad in your chest, the Rosetta Stone of Time. I need it. And Telos like, how do you know about that? He's like, bro, I was there when he put it there. I was literally standing next. Do you not remember this? And he's like, yeah. So when we went through the portal to Crisis and stopped Crisis from happening, we returned. I arrived basically right as Justice League was laying the smackdown on Darkseid, and I followed the other Hal Jordan around for a while, and like I really thought about killing him and just taking over his life, but then I thought, you know what? I ain't gonna do that. I'm just gonna make my own Coast City. Like that's what I'm gonna do. So if you give me the little doodad in your chest that gives me the power to do that, then I will tell you where your family is. And he's like, how the hell do you know where my family is? And he's like, Green Lanterns collect data in every sector of space. We knew when Brainiac entered into a sector and we saw him drop off your family. So I'm just going to tell you what sector it's in, and then you're good to go. And he's like, all right, fair enough. So Telos reaches into his chest, pulls out the little doodad. And he's like, oh, great, thanks. You know, I'm going to have my own Carol, my own Coast City. It's going to be great. And he's like, all right, here you go. There's the stone. Now, how do I find my family? It's like, oh, you don't. I'll give you the shard, the thing you guys, the roadmap, but my willpower is the key. And as he passes over the thing, he's like, yep, it's right there in Sector 3601. And he's like, what do you mean Sector 3601? And then just boom, giant green fist. And Hal's like, you idiot. There is no Sector 3601. You want to, that's the lost sector. You want to search through there? I don't have the kind of time to waste on that. So he just throws Telos into an asteroid, then uses a giant hammer and nails to just pin him down into it, puncturing right through his chest. And he's like, anyway, I'm going to build my Coast City over here. Bye. So Telos is seemingly dead. I know he isn't because we have a Telos number 6, but like, what are we doing? what are we doing? Like, I'm actually at a loss for words here of what is happening anymore. We have this whole thing, this like 3 to 4 issue thing of, oh no, we got a subterfuge and we're doing this and we're doing that and we're all doing all the other stuff. And then all of a sudden Parallax shows up and he's like, yeah, but like, screw you, Telos, and just beats his ass. On top of that, like, the fact that he's like, hey, by the way, I need that doodad in your chest. To be clear, he literally says, how about showing me that doodad that Brainiac put there after he sent us back into Crisis? And then he explains, like, all of his other stuff he did. And he says, I couldn't do that to her again, of getting rid of Hal Jordan, talking about Carol. And so I got to thinking, Telos can help me. And then he says, you'll help me build Coast City on my own. To be clear, and I want, for history's sake, this is the Parallax from his time, from pre-Zero Hour, like, post-Crisis. This is him. The first thing that Hal did when he saw Coast City was destroyed, with, like, only his own ring supplying him, was make Coast City. He doesn't need Telos to do that. I don't understand what this is for anymore. It's a nitpick, but it's there. So, yeah, this book is insane. I have no idea what's happening anymore. I'm just along for Mr. Telos' wild ride. 6. Parallax is funny. He literally calls Telos a dummy. I enjoyed that. But everything else is garbage, so 6. Red Hood Arsenal number 9, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Javier Fernandez. So, last issue, it was a lot. It was like 4 different plot lines, but everyone is down in the nethers of Gotham, and Joker's daughter is facing the consequences of stuff she did before. Arsenal is looking for her, and Red Hood is looking for both of them. So, and there's a group called Iron Rule, literally unimportant. So, Red Hood is fighting against these Iron Rule people, because, I don't know, they're sent down here to clear out the nethers. That's what they say their stated thing is. And he's firing at them. We see one of them runs in. She's got, like, glowing skin, and she's super fast. So she knocks Red Hood on his ass quite a bit away. And the Iron Rule is like, yeah, look, you don't live down here, so you can just leave. Like, we don't care. We're just here to clear out the rest of them. And he's like, oh, well, you're killing innocent people, so that makes this my fight. And he, like, looks at them as a group, and he's like, I can't take any of them on one by one, but if, like, maybe as a group I can find their weaknesses. And he talks about how his training with Dukra and the All Cast, because that's what we wanted, more of that. So yeah, he does a roundhouse kick and kicks one of them in the face. So we cut over to Arsenal, who's still looking for Joker's daughter. And it's just like, yeah, I lost her. I don't know where she is. Hopefully she's still around here. And he fires up a flare arrow and realizes he is in the middle of an old Gotham stadium. And a bunch of those lava dwellers come up and start coming towards him. And he's like, I don't suppose any of you talk. I don't speak zombie. And one of them just looks at him curiously. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Was that deadest? So then we cut over to Charon, who is the guy who was deposed by Joker's daughter over in Catwoman, God knows how long ago. And he's like, you know what? You actually did me a favor by deposing me. And she's like, you're welcome. He's like, no, don't. But when you did that, I came across these lava people, and I don't know why they stuck to me, but, like, I came to them with charisma and leadership, and now they do whatever I say. And yeah, they're going to help me take down Gotham from the above and bring it down to our level down here in the nethers. And Joker's daughter is basically like, so what you're saying is this was all my fault? And she gets a little bit teary-eyed over that. Arsenal gets thrown into the pit where she's in by the lava dwellers, and she's like, oh, Arsenal, you came back to get me. And he's just like, yeah, you're pretty much company property at this point. And she's like, is that the only reason you came back? And he's like, I'm sorry, is your sense of humor off? When did you get so sensitive? And he comments internally like, she's not wearing the Joker's mask right now. I'm thinking that she always treats that as a shield, and now that it's gone, she's actually a bit vulnerable. So Sean's like, all right, everyone keep pushing on the poles that hold up New Gotham. We're going to bring it down. Let's go. We see Red Hood is still fighting against the Iron Rule. It ain't going so hot for him. And they say, we were mercs before we died, and we're mercs now. So I guess they're all dead. Doesn't come across, but regardless, he's just like, yeah, we're getting cash. And he's like, oh, well, you're terrorizing the homeless. So at that point, it's revealed that Charon is actually funding them as well. This is part of their thing. And he's like, yeah, he paid us to clear out the nethers of the people who live down here. And he's like, I don't care anymore. I don't want to hear it. And we see that Red Hood clicks into overdrive. He gets back to his all-cast training and whatever else. And he's like, look, I've been dead before, and this is nothing like that. So he keeps on fighting against them. He remembers his training, and it looks like he's taking out the Iron Rule, but then all of a sudden the ground starts rumbling, and it's like, oh, geez, this place is about to fall apart. And then Red Hood gets either flung or jumps out a window. And he's like, oh, man, that was some toss. Do you think he's dead? And they're like, nah, probably not. So we go back to Sharon. All the lava dwellers are like, and he's like, yes, soon, we'll take care of it. And Arsenal's trying to free Joker's daughter, like, hey, snap out of it, all that. And Joker's daughter's like, no, this is my fault. Billions of people are going to die because of me. All because I just thought it would be funny to get him out of his position or whatever. This is all on me. And Arsenal's like, hey, look, I understand the self-recrimination and stuff like that. I got a lot of it myself, but like, all the things he did are his choices. You can't take responsibility for other people's choices. So we got to get out of here. Like, let's just focus on that right now. Red Hood suddenly just lands next to them. And they're like, was that planned? And he's like, kind of. But he lost his guns during the fight. So Arsenal hands over a bow and arrow gun. And he's like, all right, let's do this. So at that point, they're ready to fight. But Joker's daughter pushes them aside and says, no. This is between me and him. I have to do this. And he walks up and he's like, look, the truth is neither of us deserve to be the leaders down here, not even his people. And Sharon's like, what are you, is this supposed to stop me? Like, you're just pissing me off more. And he's like, look, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And he's like, okay, that doesn't change anything. And she's like, okay, for me it does. And they reach out and they shake hands and she's like, cool. And then she flings herself while still holding on to him over into a lava pit. And he's just like, you sucker. So he falls in the lava. She manages to get saved by Arsenal, who grabs her at the last second with like a grappling hook arrow. And she's like, why did you do that? I was about to make this heroic sacrifice play. And he's like, because killing yourself is stupid. And Red Hood basically comes up and is like, you're not taking the easy way out. And she's like, no, get out of my way, let me go. And he calms her down, just like, look, I'm not going to let you go. We're in this together. And I promise you things are going to get better. I promise. And she collapses into his shoulder and cries a little bit. And we see that as they are back to the people of the Nethers, she's leaving behind her Joker's mask in a ritualistic kind of place to say like, oh, I'm hoping it will remind them that someone is watching out for them. And they go, that's extremely creepy, but fair enough. If they want to live down here and not come up, so be it. So at that point, Arsenal looks over and he thinks he sees something out the corner of his eye, but he's like, no, that couldn't be. And as they're talking about it, they're saying like, oh yeah, it's good that you aren't a leader down here anymore. Leadership is overrated. And Red Hood's like, Arsenal, when have you ever been a leader? And he's like, oh, I have. And we get the reveal, the final page reveal that Iron Rule was actually put together by him just before this whole Rent-A-Bat thing that he put together with Jason. He said he thought he could put the group together, but he had to disband it when it got out of control. And it was the biggest mistake of his life. All right. Issue as a whole. In general, the Red Hood stuff, stupid. All the Iron Rule stuff, stupid. The stuff where we're dealing with Joker's daughter potentially facing down her consequences. She puts away the Joker mask. She tries to kill herself in a heroic sacrifice and then gets saved and has to like live with that and like start to learn and grow. I'm actually okay with that. That stuff, as much as the Joker's daughter is a stupid character, like you're doing something with her. Congratulations, you're doing it. That last page, though, of actually Arsenal was the one who made Iron Rule. Who cares? Why did we need that? That's the most nothing little like, oh, record scratch twist. Oh my God, who would have seen that? Nobody would have seen it coming because it's dumb. It's a dumb twist. Why would I never once thought for a moment that Iron Rule needed to have some other history before they showed up in this book? What are you doing? It's better than Teen Titans. Give them that. Yeah. No, it's out of what this book has been, and it's been dumb. It's been very dumb. This is probably the least dumb I felt it be. It feels like it's actually taking its time, doing a bit of character development, and actually doing it in a way that feels like it's not just quips and stupid like ninja backstory stuff. It's actually doing something with this character. So on that, I got to give it at least a 7. I think it's there. Javier Fernandez's art, I'll bump it up to the 7.5 even. This is the highest this book will ever get. I promise you that. Maybe this book will be good from here on out. I doubt it, but it's possible. But this one issue, I'll give a 7.5. Congrats. Starfire number 9, written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Elsa Charretier. I believe that's how you pronounce it. So last issue, we have the setup that we will be soon going down to Atlee's home place of Strata. And also that little starburst thing was turning into something else. Immediate first page reveal is that it turns into a weird looking bug creature thing that I believe I remember from like Teen Titans mythology. We see Stella comes out and sees them in the pool, and she's like, what the hell is that? Is that like an alien relative? And Starfire's like, yes, it's my aunt. She's like, what? She's like, no, I was joking. Sarcasm. Am I getting better at it? And it's like, yes, perfect. Turns out this thing is a key, Khee, and it's adorable. And Stella turns to her brother and is like, so you know what she's talking about? And it's like, yeah, that star thing, the little glimmer of light that was falling around, turns out it was an egg, and it turns into this alien. And that's about all I got. So Starfire says, these things are from my home world. Very few people have ever seen their eggs, which is why I didn't recognize it beforehand. They're very rare, and sometimes they choose a Tamaranian as a companion, so guess that's what happened here. Anyway, good night. I'm going to go choose a name for this thing. So she goes inside. Soul and Stella follow in soon afterwards, and Stella just fills in Soul like, hey, by the way, I'm going to be going on this trip soon, so just know that that's a thing. And she tries to turn it on and say like, oh, hey, by the way, like I heard you had an eventful evening, because apparently this all still happened on the night where Grayson showed up. And he's like, don't change the subject. Tell me more about this crazy into the center of the earth trip that you're going to be taking here. And she's like, well, you know, if I can get some time off my job, then yeah, it's going to be like a whole spa thing. And we're planning on leaving on Tuesday. Cut to Tuesday. She wakes up, looks out the window, and sees Starfire and Atlee on the roof opposite of hers. Starfire is topless and sunbathing, and she's like, Jesus, put on a t-shirt or something, or else I'm going to have to arrest you. Someone's going to call the police. Meanwhile, Soul's just sipping his coffee downstairs like, I'm not going to call the police. So Atlee tries to explain specifically why people are upset, and she's like, because you exposed boobies. And she's like, what? And she pictures like birds in her head, and she's like, oh well, I should have absorbed enough solar radiation that we should be fine to go down under the surface for our weekend getaway. And she's like, yeah, well, we do also have an artificial light down there that should charge you up all the same, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So they go down. Soul made them pancakes for breakfast, and you know, it's just a general like comedic scene until eventually Starfire comes up to Soul and says like, hey, by the way, because I'm going to be gone, I need you to look after Silky. Silky is the name that I gave it. SYL' KHEE. You just got to give it some food and attention 4 times a day. And we get a bit more backstory on what Silky is and how apparently it's like fully sentient. It's possibly more intelligent than humans as well. It picked its own name because it is that level of intelligence, and it might be able to speak English, but it chooses not to because why not? So Soul's like, okay, look, I don't know like if I'm going to be able to find the time or whatnot. Like maybe I'll be called out, but I promise I'll do what I can. I'll look after him when he's gone. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. It'll just be a few days. So we cut down to this Everglades area down in Florida where they've got a fan boat all set up, ready to go. Apparently this is Billy Bob. And Atlee greets him, and he's like, oh, hey, beautiful ladies, are either of you married? Starfire's like, oh, neither of us are. Who would you like to marry? And he's like, all 3 of you. And then all of a sudden, this black van comes up, two guys bust out with guns, and they say, hey, we're on the run from the police. You're going to take us into the Everglades so we can get away, or else we're going to start shooting people. And Billy Bob's like, oh, please don't shoot anybody. I'll do whatever you say. But then, of course, Atlee and Starfire are both superheroes. Stella's a cop. They just immediately launch in. So Atlee disorients them. Starfire shoots away their weapons. And then Stella just tackles them to the ground and starts punching them ridiculously. So then we cut over to the Everglades. They're on the boat, and Billy Bob's like, yeah, I'm a resident of down in Strata as well. I come up here. I'm now the guardian of this entrance. And, you guys just be careful and all that, all right? Just remember what I said. Don't, take this too quickly or anything like that. Take your time down there. And Atlee forms a bubble, a protective bubble using the molecules or chemicals or something from their planet, and it will protect them as they delve deeper into the water. Meanwhile, we see Billy Bob returns back home, and as he gets back in, we see that there is some sort of parasitic creature that crawls out of his mouth, and he says, oh, master, this human has done your bidding, and they didn't have a clue. And then we see this giant fire creature alligator thing apparently has his sister held hostage and is threatening to kill her, and he's like, oh, good. Also, I need your communicator for down there. And he's like, no, we had a deal. You let her go. And he's like, I'll crush her head. And he's like, fine, whatever. Here you go. Just let her go. So whoever the hell this guy is, he's saying like, yes, now I have to send a message and a city to conquer. So as the girls are descending down into the ocean, they've split 2 bottles of wine, and they're both getting a little bit drunk. They talk about the nature of heroism and how it's in Stella's bones to be a cop, the same way that it's in Atlee's and Starfire's bones to be superheroes. But Starfire's like, yeah, but I kind of just want a regular life, I don't want to be constantly waiting for danger to happen so that I can take it out. And Atlee's like, yeah, but we're kind of just always happening across that. Danger keeps happening to us, so it's kind of what we got to do. And then Stella interrupts us like, by the way, what are your intentions with my brother? Is this Dick guy gonna get in the way? And Starfire's like, what? No, Dick's gone. Don't worry about him. He's out of the book. Also, you told me to take it slow with your brother because he's getting over his ex and his widow, or whatever you want to call it. So then Atlee says by the way, if I were in your position, I would totally jump his bones. And Starfire's like, oh, I thought about it. And Stella's like, oh, God, please, no. I don't want to hear about this. This is my brother. So they finally get down. They pierce through the bubble or whatever to get to Strata. And we get one last thing where Atlee's like, by the way, before I pop this bubble, Stella, you're going to need air transfer to get you adjusted to our underground air. Starfire will be fine. She knows how to deal with different atmospheres of pressure, but you, as a normal human, need help. So she breathes into Stella's mouth. Stella passes out for a minute as she adjusts, and then as they step out of the bubble, she wakes up and she's like, yeah, I feel great. Everything's fine. So they start looking around, trying to find Strata. Atlee says that there was the monster that was sent before in Starfire issue number 4 was the cheetah monster. It was sent by King Neelatok, which was a banished royal, and he believes that chaos and death are positive things. So Starfire's like, it's all right. If he comes up, we'll just knock him out. We can take him out, no problem. So Starfire says she'll go ahead and scout, keep an eye out for things, but she's their only source of light so far, so it leaves them in the darkness. And then all of a sudden they hear Starfire scream. They start running down, trying to find where she is, and then eventually they stumble across a surprise. It's all of her friends and family just there to surprise her. And Starfire was like, yeah, they told me to scream. They said it would be funny. And Stella's like, I didn't think it was funny. I was scared out of my mind. So they look over the city and they're like, oh my God, this place is beautiful. And Starfire's like, yeah, this place is, I feel weird. And Starfire starts to pass out. They're like, okay, we got to get her to the medical lab. She was looking at the light source before she went out, so maybe it has something to do with that. But Atlee doesn't understand because the light source should be fine. It's absorbing sunlight for energy, but it's not that much of a drain. And then all of a sudden, there's a massive explosion, and out comes King Neelatok, who's like, yep, I'm here. I'm going to take over your city again. That's me, King Neelatok. Elsa Charitier's art is good. It's very solid. It's not quite what I'm expecting for this book, but I can see the style working. It's got its moments here where I think it is actually very well placed. As for the rest of the plot, I mean, I've criticized this book for feeling a bit too fast-paced before. I think that Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti do have a history in their books of being very do fun thing now, ask questions later. This one, though, I don't know. It feels like nothing happens, which is also something that I feel sometimes happens in their books. But it just feels like this was all about, I almost want to say character introspection, but it doesn't even feel like it's doing mostly that. It's mostly just, let's just do a few sci-fi-ish sort of things of like, here's all the backstory on this worm thing. Here's all the backstory on Strata and like these villains we might meet. Here's all this other stuff. So, I don't know. I felt underwhelmed. I'm still going to say it's a good 7, but I don't feel very enthusiastic about it. It's good, it's fine, it's just not great. Harley's Little Black Book, number 2, written by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by John Timms and Morissette. So I thought, going into this book, that it was an anthology where none of the issues would relate to each other. Turns out that that's not true, and all you need to know from last issue is that Harley went to London and ran into a group called the London Legion of Superheroes, which is a bunch of no-name nobodies, but they are aware of Harley. So this issue picks up with Harley writing in her book saying like, oh man, what a crazy week it's been. Let me rewind the clock and tell you how it was. And then we cut back to a shot of Harley throwing a bunch of missiles flying in the air at Green Lantern. She's like, okay, I might not have gone back far enough. Let's go back a little further. And we cut to a couple of stoners out in the middle of some national park, and they're looking up at the sky and they're like, oh my God, like, look at the majesty. Can you like just imagine there has to be aliens out there? And they start talking about just sleeping with alien princesses when all of a sudden Shooting Star turns out to be a rocket ship, crash lands nearby. They go over and out steps a giant feminine looking alien. And they're like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is fantastic. And she holds out a box, and we get the translation of, you have to take this box, keep it far away from villainy. They'll stop at nothing for the contents. The worlds would fall before the power of these rings. But they can't understand a word of that. And they're like, hey, is that the box from Pinhead? Is Pinhead going to jump out? That's crazy. So she ends up dying, and she's like, please let whoever finds this box be smarter than these two. And she collapses. They pick up the box, and they're like, well, maybe we could sell it on eBay, and we'll get some money for it. But we got to figure out what it is first. So a week passes. They try to figure it out. Nothing's happening. One guy says, hey, toss it over to me. Let me try. And as they toss it, it starts floating in the air, and it opens up. And inside are a bunch of different power rings. That is to say, 3. And one of them's a Green Lantern ring, which is just floating separately. It's just out by itself. And then there's 2 other rings, a red ring and a black ring. And they are kept in their own little private bubbles, but they're connected together. So they're like, hey, let's break these out. We can sell these on eBay because a Green Lantern ring's got to go for a couple grand. They try hitting it with a hammer. Nothing breaks it until accidentally they spill milk on it, and that dissolves the bubbles they're in. And as soon as the bubbles deteriorate, the rings, the red and the black ones, merge together to form a red and black ring. You can already see where we're going with this. So at that point, he's like, all right, well, we can try to sell this thing on eBay, but I don't even know what it is. We'll see if it's worth anything. So cut over to Harley. She is on eBay, and she's like, oh my God, this is crazy. I need to bid on this. And we see that it is the Green Lantern ring. It's going for $3,000. She places a bid. And then we cut over to the office of Jeff Johns, who is like, what? No way. No one's getting the Green Lantern ring before me. So he ups it to $10,000. And then it just keeps growing. And we see he's getting more and more angry at Harley, yelling at his computers like, oh, 100 grand, 200 grand, 3, 2, 1. And it hits 0. He ends up winning the Green Lantern. And then he realizes, oh God, my wife's going to kill me. We then cut over to Harley, who's like, oh my God, I lost. How could this happen? Oh, hey, this guy has another ring for sale. Well, I'm going to get that before it goes out. And it's different colors, but it only costs $5 grand. Meanwhile, Mojave Desert, we see Hal Jordan is acting as his test pilot role, and he's flirting with this woman who I guess is in charge of this plane. It's an inter-country thing with the Russians. They're talking about how they slept that together the night before, but they need to keep it professional now, and they'll keep it under wraps. But wouldn't you know it, they're mic'd up so everyone can hear it. So he hops in the plane, flies it around, says how great it is. But then as he's flying, he sees that there is a cruise liner that is sinking. So he has to very quickly fake a malfunction, lands it on a nearby runway, and then runs to a bathroom and takes off his Green Lantern to go save the cruise ship. He does so. Doesn't seem like there's any casualties. He goes to talk to the captain, and he's like, yeah, there was a debris pile. It caused a big hole in our ship. We took on water. And as Hal Jordan's like, well, it's all in a day's work, his ring malfunctioned. He's like, huh, that's weird. Meanwhile, we cut to New York City, where the London Legion has landed in an airplane. They're checking into customs because they want to come here to visit Harley. And turns out that one of them is actually not allowed to leave the country because he's wanted for like homicide or something. So as he's like, hey, guys, I need you all to run a distraction. They're like, why should we? You should have brought this up beforehand. How dare you? He gets so scared about getting caught that he craps his pants, which allows him to move out of the line to go fix it. And as the guards / officers or whatever are keeping watch over the bathroom, he tells them, like, I'm going to be a while cleaning all this up. He uses his superpowers to stick to the ceiling tiles and then sneaks outside that way. That's a story. That's what happens. So Harley gets a red and black ring delivered. She puts it on, and immediately it starts overtaking her body. She's like, oh, I feel empowered, invincible, and pretty evil. So she takes off outside the window. She's sprouted like giant hawk-looking wings that are red and black. A couple of her friends are like, was that Harley? Did she just fly by? Nah, that can't be that. We see some criminals are currently in pursuit. A couple of cops are chasing after them, and Harley's like, well, this doesn't seem fair, and she throws down a brick wall and causes the cops to crash into it. She goes to talk to the criminals, and she's like, hey, how about you let me in on whatever this crime wave is? We can plan the biggest thing of the century. Let's do it. And the guy just pulls out a gun, aims it at Harley, and is just like, how about no? And then Harley responds with a power drill construct and just absolutely kills this guy. She then picks up the car, spins it around at like 100 miles an hour. Everyone starts vomiting inside, and they say, please, just let us go. And she's like, fine. So she lets go of the car. It goes flying into the side of the Brooklyn Bridge, and she's like, ooh, that was a big explosion. I'm thinking I'm going to set the city on fire. Hell, I'm going to set the world on fire. So we go back to the London Legionnaires who are stuck in traffic, and they're like, okay, well, New York City is a pretty big city. How are we supposed to find Harley? They talk to the cab driver who charges them like $75 for information. He gets on the phone and is just like, anyone know about Harley Quinn, Joker's ex-girlfriend? And then someone responds with like, do not go near. She's in Coney Island. Stay away. And it's just like, all right, Coney Island, let's go. We then go to Hal, who apparently his green ring has been leading him to New York as sort of a beacon to try to figure out what is going on. He's like, oh, there's something evil's going on there. I got to see if I'm ready for anything. And when he shows up, he sees the Brooklyn Bridge on fire and Harley standing with a bunch of missiles in her hand. And she's like, well, this is pretty much where we opened up. So, yeah, let's continue on. So Hal calls her out like, there are millions of innocent people down there. And she's like, no, most people are on vacation. These are just the poor people who can't afford it. And she throws the missiles at Hal. He bats them away, knocking them all out. And she's like, you made a baseball bat? That's your imagination? He's just like, oh, well, I'm imagining quite a bit right now. And Harley like strikes a pose, and she's like, yeah, well, who could blame me? I'm looking good in this suit. So Harley grabs hold of Hal with the construct, and she's like, wait a minute, that's black and red. That ain't normal. So he breaks free, swats her up into the International Space Station, where everyone scrambles for an airlock because, you know, a giant hole in the side of it. Harley's like, nobody pimp slaps me into space. And so she pushes the satellite out of orbit, and it starts burning up in the atmosphere. Hal has to go up, grab hold of them, slow them down as they get down to water surface, make sure they're all safe. Harley continues to fight in a jet plane. And just like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to take you out and I'm going to go back and deep fry them. And Hal's like, okay, Harley, you've got red and black going on. Red is rage and fury. Black is death and destruction. it ain't good for your psyche. You need to take that off. And she's like, oh, yeah? Well, what do you say we settle this once for all? We'll see who's the most powerful. Arm wrestle for it. And he's like, what? No, just take off the ring. And he's like, well, look, if whoever loses will submit to the winner. How about it? Let's do it. So they arm wrestle over the Brooklyn Bridge, giant constructs, and Harley just immediately goes into like, oh, well, if I have to submit to you if I lose, I wonder what sort of naughty, kinky things you'll make me do. And Hal's like, I'm just gonna make you take off the ring. That's all we're gonna do here. And she's like, oh, okay. You're gonna take care of me, or is it a nurse sort of thing we're doing here? And he's like, shut up, let's just do this. So they do it, they struggle, and Harley ends up looking like she's going to win. It's right up to the wire. She's about to pin it down against a building when all of a sudden something interferes and Hal Jordan gets a zap to the face from a space laser. Harley's like, who interrupted our game? And we see it's the aliens who initially took the rings. They stole the rings, but then it was stolen from them by someone who was trying to protect everybody. So she's like, oh, well, let's to get the ring back from her, and then we'll just kill her and destroy the planet, for funsies. So Harley flies up and just like, oh, you interrupted my arm wrestling. And they're like, hey, we'll give you anything you want for that ring. And she's like, oh, anything? Okay. Like if I wanted a army of fire-breathing dragons or a million pepperoni pizzas. And he's like, well, you'd have to tell us what a pepperoni pizza is. But yeah, we could do that. And he's like, oh, what about planet's worth of kittens and puppies that don't doo-doo? And he's like, yes, if you define puppies and kittens and doo-doo, yeah, we can do that. So all of a sudden, Harley starts feeling tired. She's feeling exhausted. And he's like, that's the ring. It's draining you. If you take it off and give us the ring, then you'll feel better than anything else. And then all of a sudden, the ring is talking to her. Apparently, it can read their minds. And she realizes, wait a minute. You're not going to give me any of that stuff. You're lying. And he's like, all right, enough of this. And he zaps her down, takes the ring off her hand anyway, and just be like, all right, ring's mine. Let's go. So Harley wakes up after having the ring removed. Hal, who is recovered from his space laser to the face, comes up and it's just like, hey, do you remember anything about what you just did? And she's like, no, I put on the ring and I blacked out, and I vaguely remember reading some minds and that he's going to destroy the world, so we should probably deal with that. So Hal busts open the door with his Green Lantern boxing glove, and she's like, what, boxing glove? Why? And he's like, yeah, it's a classic. She goes in, she's ready to fight, but immediately gets blasted back out. Hal has to catch her. And once again, he gets zapped in the face with the space laser, so he's knocked out again. They're in like low Earth orbit, so they start falling to the Earth. Harley's trying to wake him up, nothing doing. She tries to rip the ring off his finger, not working, and it's finally at the very last second, she gets it off, puts it on her own hand, and becomes Green Lantern and Harley Quinn. So using her Green Lantern powers, she's like, oh, hey, I can get up there and take care of things, but how should I do it? And after flying up, she's imagining all these different constructs she can do, like a green hand or a Tasmanian devil or a power drill. And then she's like, no, wait, it's so obvious. And she makes a giant mallet that she just whacks the ship. It explodes. And she says, thanks, Obama. So Hal starts to come to, and he's like, did you just thank Obama for that? And she's like, yeah, I figured everybody does. So they fly off. They have Hal looked at because he took 2 space lasers to the face. And Hal's just like, where do you get that ring anyway? She's like, oh, I got it off eBay, fair and square. It's whatever. So Hal's like, look, you caused some chaos or whatever, but you clearly weren't in control, and you did end up saving the day. So I guess everything's forgiven. We're all good. And she's like, oh, cool. Call me if you need a sidekick or you want to hang out, right? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So she asks for a kiss from the famous Green Lantern, and he's like, do you promise to stay out of trouble? And she's like, no, of course not. And he's like, all right, fine, whatever. So they share a kiss. Apparently Harley grabs his ass, and then he takes off. So then our final little page is we see the London Legion is eating some famous Coney Island hot dogs. They've apparently spent all their money on the cab ride and this food. They have no idea where Harley is, and they have no leads. And wouldn't you know it, Harley just happens to walk up to the window and starts ordering. And they're like, Harley, we found you. It's great. And they're like, oh my God, how long are you guys going to be in town for? And they're like, well, we're broke. So until we can get some money, it's probably going to take at least 2 weeks. And Harley goes, great, you can stay with me. This is going to be good. And that's the issue. 43 pages of that. It's fine. It's good. I think I like the Wonder Woman issue a little bit more. This one, it was solid. I like the red and black ring concept. Obviously, it's just made for Harley Quinn, and it makes absolutely no sense in Green Lantern lore, but like, At the same time, they at least played up the idea that it made her super evil, which both of those rings would definitely do that. So, yeah, I'd say it's easily I'll say a 7.5. I really like John Tim's art. It's got a sketchy style that I think really suits Green Lantern, and then Harley also just looks great character design-wise in this when she's got the rings. So, yeah, I'll say 7.5. Decent read. Batman and Robin Eternal number 19, written by Tynion, Snyder, and Seeley, art by Paul Pelletier. So this issue picks up in England, just some random coffee shop. And as this one woman is getting her coffee, all of a sudden a school bus crashes into the front, and we see that it piles out with a bunch of kids. I can't tell if they're from St. Hadrian's or if it is just random kids from the area. But regardless, they come out all chanting mother, and the woman who's getting her coffee is like, you have to tell St. Adrian's, call Maiden Bertinelli, spirals under attack, and then she just gets murdered by these children. And she's just talking to this random coffee shop owner, so, word probably doesn't get out. We then cut over to St. Hadrian's, and we see one of the professors named Miss Gold is being attacked with like arrows being fired at her desk, and she's like, I'm very disappointed in you ladies, I'm gonna have to punish you. She reaches in her desk and pulls out a gun, and she's like, such a waste of potential. And as she gets up to start firing off shots, she takes a arrow to the wrist, knocks out the gun, and she's like, all right, well, that's Matron's fault. She trained you too well. And as one of them comes up and has a crossbow trained at her face, another one of them comes in and kicks that one in the face. And it's just like, Miss Gold, we got to get out of here. They're not going to be down for long. So she starts running, starts taking off down the hall. And she basically says, can't you hear it? That voice. The voice is telling us to kill the adults. It's saying her name. And we see, once again, they're all chanting, mother, mother, mother. We cut to Harper, who, of course, just recently learned that her mother was killed by Mother, aka Cassandra, and she starts giving into the wave, the virus, whatever you want to call it. Orphan is there talking to Ashmore, the spiral agent in the other cell, just like, oh yeah, she hears the call, now she'll be part of this. And it's like, oh great, cool, tell her to get us out of this. And he's like, it doesn't really work that way. So we see Red Hood arrives down, just like, hey, Harper, you good in here? And Harper just turns around with taser and is just like, mother, and is ready to fire at Red Hood. Back in the room where everyone else is hanging out, Helena's freaking out, like, what is happening in my school? What is going on? And she like starts shaking Cassandra to get answers, and Grayson's like, hey, she doesn't know, none of this is her fault. And she's like, yeah, it's your fault. This is your superhero games coming in, and now look at all the kids in my school, look what's happening. And he's like, no, maybe this is all part of Mother's plan. Maybe he wanted this to begin with. Like, after all, she's killing kids the same way that you guys do. Isn't that a whole thing? And it's just like, excuse me, Spiral is okay, well, it does do things with kids, but like, we're nothing alike. And that's where Red Robin chimes in, and he's like, no, you guys, this is just a small-scale test. It's a distraction. She wants access to Hypnos, and we see that there is a satellite that is doing hypnosy things out in space. So apparently the fight between Harper and Red Hood happened, and it knocked both of them out, but it allowed for the taser misfires to short out the system, and now Orphan and Ashmore can get out of their seats, or their cells. Orphan's about to just beat the ever-loving crap out of Harper while she's asleep, but a bunch of the girls who are under Mother's control show up, and they stop him and start shooting at him. And he's like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. It's exactly what we wanted. And Ashmore's like, yeah, okay, great, fantastic. They're still trying to kill us. So they run away. We see Grayson is like, what's with the satellite? What's going on? And Helena explains, we call it the Somnus satellite. It's basically if we need a widespread, like, wiping a whole country's memory of something happening. That's what this is for. And Dr. Netz reveals that there's a smaller, localized one underneath St. Hadrian's. And, they use that in case, maybe the Justice League shows up and tries to pull some stuff. Just saying, it's there. So at that point, Tim starts getting woozy. He's like, oh no, I think it's getting in. This is a way to deliver the Ichthys virus from around the world. And both him and Cass collapse, and when they sit back up, they're both saying mother, and both angrily trying to beat the other crap out of everybody else. So Helena takes on Cass and just being like, you know what? I've taught a lot of young girls. I can teach you the same. And just like throws her down, does all that stuff. Helena's about to kill Cass, though, with a crossbow. Grayson has to interfere and saying like, no, she's not in control. This isn't her fault. You don't kill her over this. Meanwhile, he's fighting off Tim the whole time. As they flip over, Tim shakes out of her just a second to say, like, the one thing that overcomes it is Scarecrow's gas, and then he slips right back under again. Dr. Netz hears this and immediately has some on standby, just slaps a gas mask on his face and starts dosing him with fear toxin. And he's just like, yeah, no, this should be able to excite the areas of the brain that overcome it. And we see Tim is just sobbing uncontrollably, but he's like, it works, it's good. So meanwhile, Helena's still beating the crap out of Cassandra. Got her in a pretty good spot, but then she headsbutts backwards, causing Helena to like break her nose. Blood is just pouring everywhere. And they slap a mask onto Cassandra, so now she's also okay. So at that point, it's like, okay, now that that's under control, now that that's fixed, how do we stop the virus? How do we undo it? And Netz is like, look, if it's super top tier programming, like it would take me hours to fix it. And Grayson's like, Red Robin, can you help out? Can you do whatever? And he's like, maybe at my best, but like, I'm seeing you all as monsters right now, and I still got the Scarecrow gas in me. I'm not in any place to do anything right here. And that's when Helena stands up and be like, this whole compound is all hooked up to a generator. We can shut down the grid and stop Mother from gaining access to the satellite. Any questions? And they're like, what happened to Jason and Harper? They left a while ago. Are they good? Harper would be the exact age that would totally affect her. And Grayson's like, all right, Cass, you are going to come with me. We're going to find Jason and Harper. The rest of you go take out the generator. All right, that's the plan. So everyone runs off to do their thing. We see all the kids are out in the courtyard still just chanting Mother. And Red Hood, at some point in there, had gotten up. He's beating off all these girls at this school who are coming to kill me. He's like, you know, I've often had the dreams of waking up to a bunch of college girls and having to fend them all off of me, but it was more so in a music video kind of way and less of a John Carpenter movie. And then Grayson comes in and he's like, you know, I think I made that exact same joke before. And it's like, well, yeah, we all have the same sense of humor when we have to fill the silent voids that Batman leaves behind. So at that point, Harper jumps in and is like trying to help kill. Cassandra immediately grabs her, slaps the Scarecrow toxin onto her face, and as she's coming to, she's like, oh, the gas, it's blocking the sounds. I can't hear Mother, but it does show me my greatest fear and force me to confront it. And she looks at Cass, sees Cass as this just horrible, demonic-looking murder creature, and sees her dead mother's body in front of Cass. And she reaches up and starts, like, strangling Cass. She's like, and it's going to let me kill it. So, yeah, Harper's clearly still working through some things there. It's fine. Solid issue. Good enough. I really don't have any major faults with it. What is this? This is a 26 issue series, so we've still got 7 issues to go. I guess that's my only main concern, is that it does feel like we're in the end game here, unless they get access to the satellite. I think that's the only way we can really escalate. But you know, I could see plenty of ways this can go to still feel 7 issues. So I'm not that worried. It feels like a fine enough issue. 7.5, 7.5. It doesn't quite feel like 8 territory, but it's good. It's a solid issue. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this February 10th, 2016. And like I said at the beginning, it's been a long one. I really don't want to stick around on this ending for too long. I will tell you the comics that are coming out next week, and this is your last reminder and only reminder. Valentine's Day is coming up. If you haven't bought anything for that special someone in your life, you should probably go find a special someone. Because I'm going to assume that that's the problem. I'm going to assume that majority of the audience listening to New 52 Talk is single. Not me, though. Lock that one down. Anyway, now that I'm done deprecating the audience, thank you so much for paying attention. What do we got coming out next week? Next week we have, in semi-alphabetical order here, Dr. Fate, Harley Quinn, Martian Manhunter, Poison Ivy, Cycle of Life and Death, Robin, Son of Batman, Secret Six, Sinestro, Titans Hunt, Wonder Woman, and our weekly series, Batman and Robin Eternal. Much smaller week. Very grateful for that. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you have anything you'd like to say about any of the comics I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, go ahead and put them in the comments section down beneath the YouTube video. Or if you're watching this through some other means, find the YouTube video. But then also you can comment on our Discord, our subreddit, our Patreon. We have numerous avenues for which to talk to you with. And I'm struggling. I am so much trying to wrap this up quickly that I'm stumbling over my words. Apologies. But thank you so much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week and interact with this show positively. Tell it it's pretty. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.